Good evening. The December 16th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session. Welcome to this meeting of the Arlington Board of Zoning Appeals, which is also known as the BZA. I am Inta Malice, Chair of the Board. The Board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Vice Chair Peter Owen and members Judy Freshman, Paul Melnick, and Portia Clark. Also present is the professional staff, including Stephen Rissy, coordinator for the BZA, Cliff Hogan, assistant to the zoning administrator, Matt Busing, acting assistant to the zoning administrator, Mark Hamela, zoning technician. Also joining us this evening will be Min Chow Kaur, Deputy County Attorney, Kevin Black, Assistant County Attorney, and Arlova Vaughn, zoning administrator. For the safety of our board members, county staff, and applicants, and participating community members, we are holding a virtual meeting today, and all participants are joining remotely. We are legally authorized to hold this virtual meeting based on the governor's executive order, legislation adopted by the Virginia General Assembly, and the Arlington County Board's Continuity of Operations Ordinance adopted in March of 2020. We thank you for being here and extend a warm welcome. Before we call our first case, I will share with you some general information about the Board of Zoning and then some ground rules on how we will conduct virtual meetings. The staff reports for each case on tonight's agenda can be found on the BZA website. Staff has placed a link to the agenda in the chat section of the session. If you have not seen the report for your case, you may wish to review it before your item is called. Staff has also placed a link in the chat for supplemental material received after the staff reports were prepared. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set forth in further detail in the county zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. The board does have the authority to do 3 things. 1, we can approve use permits that allow modification of placement requirements for structures on 1 and 2 family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow for such modifications. 2, we can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance. And 3, we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meets certain conditions and that the use permit will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To do this, the BZA shall consider whether the modifications will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood, because the structure's overall footprint, size, and placement are similar to structures on properties surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees and foliage. When granting variances, the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the improvements meet the following criteria: that the strict application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, or that granting the variance would alleviate a hardship due to a physical condition relating to the property or improvements thereon at the time of the effective date of the ordinance, or that the granting of the variance would alleviate a hardship by granting a reasonable modification to a property or improvement thereon requested by or on behalf of a person with a disability, and the property for which the variance is being requested was acquired in good faith and any hardship was not created by the applicant, that the variance granted will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and nearby properties in the proximity of the geographic area, that the condition or situation of the property concerned is not so general or recurring in nature as to make reasonably practical the adoption of an amendment to the ordinance, that granting the variance will not result in a use that is not otherwise permitted on the property or change the zoning classification of the property, and that the relief or remedy obtained through the variance is not available through a special exception process provided for under the zoning and/or subdivision ordinance. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must use its judgment to determine if the administrator was correct. The order of our meeting is as follows. First, cases will be called and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given. Following that, board members will ask any questions of staff they may have. Next, applicants or their representatives will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. After we hear from the speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may also ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for applicants and speakers to be sufficient. 20 minutes for applicants of appeals, 5 minutes for applicants of use permits and variances, 3 minutes for speakers representing organizations, and 2 minutes for those speaking as individuals. After the board has gathered all the information they need and has discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Now I would like to orient everyone to our virtual environment and to cover a few specifics about how this evening's meeting will run. Tonight's meeting is available to stream from the county website via Microsoft Teams link. There is also a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. If board members, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For guests joining us via Teams, please turn off your video feed. Only board members will leave their cameras on. When called upon to speak, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. The meeting chat is active for presenters or board members who need technical assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. For board members, if you wish to be recognized to speak on an item, please seek recognition verbally as usual. If we find that is unworkable, we also have the option to use the raised hand function. In either case, once you have been recognized, you may unmute yourself. All voting today will be taken by roll call. To applicants and speakers, public speakers and applicants, you will be called upon by county staff at an assigned time. Pre-registration to speak at today's hearing was requested. We will accommodate any additional speakers only if time permits. Public comment will take place within the time frame stated earlier, the same as we would provide at an in-person meeting. During public comment, a speaker timer will be displayed on the screen by staff. If you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide you an audible warning when 30 seconds are remaining. You will be muted when your time has concluded. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county's website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. This concludes my introductory remarks. I will mention that tonight we have a very full agenda and we are doing our best to get through it, but at 10 o'clock, if we have not completed our agenda, we will reassess as to whether we will be able to hear all the items on the agenda tonight. With that, Mr. Rissy, would you please call the first agenda item?
Yes, Madam Chair. The first item is case number V-11581-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Matthew M. Venos and Laura S. Venos, the owners, to permit a rear setback of 16 feet to the rear porch, 16.2 to the porch's eaves, 12.7 feet to the wall, 12.6 from the house eaves from the rear property line, instead of 21 feet to the porch and house eave, 19.5 feet to the porch eaves, and 25 feet to the wall as required, and to permit a separation of 5 feet between main building wall and accessory building wall instead of 8 feet as required, regarding a 2-story side and rear additions, a 1-story porch at the rear side door, and a 2nd story over existing side porch in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 4910 13th Street North. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions, and I'd like you to please note that there are additional speakers who have signed up to speak for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Board members, are there any comments for staff? Comments or questions for staff? All right. Is the applicant with us tonight?
Yes, we're here.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Is there anything you'd like to tell us about your case tonight?
Just to reiterate some of the things from our first hearing and then follow up with some additional information, but I'll be brief. First, we've been in our house since 2012 and we've lived here 8 years, made a few improvements, but more importantly, we've grown our family, made lifelong friendships with our neighbors, which is even more important now that we spend all of our time on our block. And what we're proposing is important to us in several ways. First, it provides us space that we need. Second, it maintains the character of our home, which we define as our classic front facade, front lawn, screened in porch, towering tulip poplar, and we really don't want to alter those things. And lastly, it means that we can stay put in this house for decades. So what we're asking for is not only the use permit, but really it's permission to expand our home in a tasteful way and a way that suits our family's needs without causing harm. In our original hearing, we had 6 homework assignments, and I just want to provide very brief updates. The first is we've added more water management solutions to our project. We already have a rain barrel, dry well, and drain, and we are planning to add multiple rain barrels as well. Second, we provided photographs of the rear yard from multiple perspectives so you can get a better sense of things. Third, we have provided 3D models of the proposed project from different points of view so that it's easier to see what we're talking about. 4, we've confirmed that the 1988 decline proposal was declined due to regulations at that time, which have since been updated and we've followed them in our proposal. 5, we've consulted with our tree expert on the health and wellness of our poplar that we'd wish to maintain and confirm that it is healthy. And lastly, we've taken our neighbor Marianne's feedback very seriously. We've had a series of emails, phone calls, socially distanced interactions out in the backyard, and we've decided to eliminate our rear deck from our plans because that was most close to her property line, and we do really want to respect her privacy in that regard. So lastly, we've triple checked with all of our neighbors that they still feel positive about our proposal and feel fortunate to be here with you all again today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Finos. Let's hear from the speakers. Let's see, would you call them, Mr. Rissy? I don't see the list.
Mr. Rissy is on mute. Mr. Rissy, you're muted.
The
There you
first
go.
speaker on our list is Mary Ann Goley.
Thank you. Ms. Goley, are you with us?
I think so. Did I
We see you.
click everything?
We see you. Thank you.
Okay. May I just have a point of order that has nothing to do with my personal statement? But at the September meeting, I think you all recall, there was quite a bit of discussion about notification of neighbors. So in this instance, there was a yellow sign on 13th Street for the December 16th meeting. There were no signs anywhere near my house on North Washington Boulevard. And I came away from the September meeting thinking that the committee did want this kind of notification to take place. So I just wanted to make that point. So if I may, my 2 minutes. My position has not changed since the September meeting. I am for the Venoses exercising their by right option to the left and right of their property, but adopting this plan will absolutely be injurious to my abutting property in terms of mass, height, light, and water management. Expansion to the back was denied once, in part because the staff felt the site did not have features that constituted a hardship. This has not changed. There is no hardship in need of a waiver. The proposed back wall is too high and would hover over my property, looking into my second floor. The Venus's property has a very narrow backyard, if we can see that, Stephen. And also, Stephen, remember, we took a photograph of the new distance that was being proposed. So if you could show those. The Venus's backyard is sloped towards my property. It's not flat as it is to the left and right of the house. This means that water runs from their yard to mine. The county has a video, and Stephen is going to show it. Yes, yeah. This video was taken by the next speaker. It was taken July 10th, 2019. The water started from the top of 13th Street, crossed 13th Street, hit the tip of the Venus's neighbor on the other side, into the Venus's yard, into my yard, and then into Chris Kim's yard, who's going to speak later. Since the September interaction with the applicants, it has been cordial and informative, but there's been actually no discussion per se. 2 encounters were fact-finding, as was the third. While Mr. Rizzi's visited to take measurements, I learned that the rear deck and porch had been eliminated, and I thank you for that. But the Venuses were also having a 3D architectural plan prepared. I said I'd look forward to seeing that. I only saw it on November 14th when Laura emailed me an information copy that had already been submitted to the BZA staff. I responded the next day saying that my position had not changed. Again, on December 3rd, I asked them to reconsider not moving the wall closer to my property, but there was no discussion and they did not agree. So I just conclude with how I opened. I propose that they exercise their by right options fully to the left and right, but please not to the back and not closer to my property. And I just have one note in their October 21st statement that they have submitted to you. It's a statement from their architect. Please note that point number 1 is not relevant. My property does not border their garage. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Goley. The next speaker, Mr. Rizzi.
Madam Chair, before I call the next speaker, I'm just going to allow I think it's a 13-second video to run.
Conclude. Thank you.
was it 6? How many inches of rain?
2.
3.3.
All right. Our next speaker on the list is Christopher Kim.
Mr. Kim, welcome.
Yes, hi, I'm Chris Kim. Yes, and back up to the other side of the rear of Matt and Laura's house. And I don't really have any objection to coming out farther and making that older edition a little more useful. My one big concern is, like Mary Ann sort of saying, is the water issue. Now that was the same water video you saw that was wiped out Westover and some other. It was, like a 500-year storm. But so yes, rainwater runoff is my only concern. I have sent that to the county. There's no storm drain off of 13th Street, and I could go on and on, but that's all I have to say.
Mr. Kim, what is your address?
4907 Washington Boulevard.
4907. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Rissy, the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Latherin Erskine.
Hi, everybody. My name is actually Catherine Erskine. I think that was a typo. Nice to be here today.
Welcome.
I wanted to let you all know that I volunteered to be here tonight. I live at 4904 13th Street North, right next door to the Venice's house, and we are in favor of their addition. Very supportive of it. I know that there have been storm water runoff issues on our street previously. We fortunately next door do not have stormwater issues, but I know that some of the other neighbors do. And I do feel very positive that the Venices have done everything possible and will continue to do everything possible to mitigate those issues.
Thank you, Ms. Erskine.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rissy.
The last speaker we have on our list is Ben Lewis.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good. Welcome, Mr. Lewis.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me appear, and thank you to everyone for your time this evening. I'll be brief. On behalf of myself and my wife, Morgan, we live directly opposite the Venoses, and we would also like to support the proposed addition. The Venoses have shown us the plans and given us the opportunity to review them. In advance of the application, we reviewed the plans, had no concerns whatsoever, and fully support the application. But we are the house directly opposite, the other side of 13th Street. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, what is your address?
We are 4915 13th Street North.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our speakers. Board members, any questions of either staff or the applicant or speakers?
Madam Chair, I don't know whether or not the board is inclined to approve or disapprove or do something else. If my colleagues are inclined to approve this, then I have some questions for the applicant about conditions.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Melnick.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to approve this. I think great efforts have been made by the applicants to address the concerns that we've voiced at the previous meeting. And so, since I think they've been met, that's my impression at this point, to respond to what Mr. Owen said.
That's very helpful, Mr. Melnick. Thank you. Any other comments?
I agree, Freshman.
Ms. Freshman, thank you. It does seem that, there's been quite a bit done to add additional water mitigation, which was our major concern, as well as addressing some privacy issues with the porch and with the deck. So, Mr. Owen, if you have some direction that you'd like to take us in, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the zoning ordinance specifically calls out helping to preserve significant trees, and the applicants have made a foundational assertion that preserving the large poplar tree, which in this photograph, seems especially prominent and helpful to the neighborhood, is the reason for the trying to cram in the extra floor space in their house in the rear as opposed to their larger front yard. And I think it seems like this is exactly the sort of case that the county board may have contemplated when it put that language in. That if there was a completely empty lot that was unconstrained, maybe we would expect the applicant to move in a different direction. But preserving that tree is important. So the first question I would ask the applicants is, would you be willing? So, and the other thing I'll say is, this is nothing against the applicants in particular. I think they and their architect and builder should be commended for the extra work that they did in the last 2 months to improve this application, which was very helpful. But sometimes a property, unexpectedly gets sold. And so I would just be concerned that we would, approve this and allow a somewhat awkward backyard to preserve the tree, and then a future owner might not decide to preserve the tree. So I was wondering if the applicants would be willing to include a condition that either this tree be preserved, or if for whatever reason this tree dies, that a new poplar tree be planted in the place of it. That's something the applicants would be willing to go along with.
Yeah, I think that we would be open to that. I think that I would tie it to the length of the use permit. But I think we'll do everything we can to keep this tree going. There was another tree on our lot that was struck by lightning and we had to take down. Yeah. And if that were the case here, we'd be happy to replace it with a similarly comparable tree. Yep. I love tulip poplars, but maybe at the time we want to put in a spruce or a birch or something like that. But I think we'd be more than happy to put something in a condition, the use permit for something along those lines.
Yeah, and we'll continue our regular checks to make sure that it remains not only healthy but safe to us and our neighbors. That we're committed to that.
In the past, we've tried to ask the zoning administrator to determine what a similar tree would be, and she hates that. So I think we might just have to stick with tulip poplar for enforceability, or poplar at least for enforceability. You identified in greater detail the stormwater collection infrastructure that you have already put in place and that you plan to put in place. Would you be willing to agree to a use permit condition that requires the maintenance of this infrastructure for the duration of the use permit?
I think we'd be happy to keep some stormwater mitigation in place, and not trying to say that we would lessen it, but if we happen to build a dry well in the front yard to help with the water coming down the street, and the dry well in the location that it currently is not necessary, I don't want to have to be stuck having that dry well there if it's not necessary at that point. So I'm not sure how we want to condition the language, but we're happy to keep as much, if not more, infrastructure in place on our lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love the rain barrel that we already have. So we're excited to have others to reuse water. That's important to us. And if the county decides to put in storm drains on 13th Street, we can always reassess what's working and what's needed. And if there are newer technologies in, dealing with rainwater, we would be up for looking into that as well. It's important to us.
Yeah, we're happy to keep, absolutely happy to keep stormwater mitigation on our property.
Can I just follow up? Is the dry well on your plans that were submitted?
I know,
It looks like it is.
okay, it's behind our garage right now. We had some images taken. I'm not sure if it's on the
Okay.
plans.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we had some.
Oh, maybe it's not. Okay. So is there a way to quantify the number of dry wells? Is something that we can use even if you have to move them around?
We can keep at least one on there. We're happy to maintain at least one that we have right now. So if we add another one, maybe we don't need to maintain two, but at least one we're happy to maintain.
Yeah, so we already have one current dry well and one drain in our driveway and one rain barrel, and our plans indicate adding additional rain barrels.
Okay. So the commitment would be to maintain what you have plus add rain barrels.
Yeah.
Yes, with perhaps flexibility if newer rain management technology emerges, or if Arlington puts in better stormwater management on our street, like they're doing at Westover right now.
Mr. Rissy?
Madam Chair, I would just like to note that the designers for the project have both raised their hands and would like to chime in.
All right. Who is that? Is that
This is Charles Moore. I'm the principal architect.
Are you?
I just wanted to note.
You have video?
I'm sorry?
You have video?
Oh, sorry. There's my video.
Mr. Moore,
Hello?
welcome. Mr. Moore, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I just wanted to note that our drawings on sheet A 1.4 in your package does show the existing dry well, which is located behind the garage. It's a large black dot on the drawing, as well as the current rain barrel. On that same drawing, you'll see the addition of 5 more rain barrels. So we have divided up all of the roof area and taken the water from the roof to each of these rain barrels so that they're well distributed to collect the water. Thank you. I just wanted to point that out.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. That they're documented. That they're documented in the plan.
Yes, thank you.
And I just want to clarify, we're not trying to say we want to have the flexibility to have less mitigation in the future. We just want to have the flexibility if we want to relocate the dry well or relocate the French drain or an area that may be more efficient, then that's what we're looking to have, that sort of flexibility.
Madam Chair, I have a condition in mind that ought to do the trick.
All right. You may have others, so go ahead. If we're done with the rainwater.
I don't know if you want to call on Mr. Moore. No, he did. Already. We
talked to Mr. Moore.
Okay. So just one final matter.
There's CM with their hand up. That's Mr. Moore. We heard from him, right?
Yeah. So the final issue was the screening, vegetative screening along the rear property line that the applicants indicated that they would be willing to put in place. We've done in the past where we've asked people to put in vegetative screening after consultation with the rear neighbors. So that doesn't give the rear neighbor the right to control what's there or veto what's there, but just, encourages there to be a conversation before you make a final decision about what vegetative screening to include. Is that a condition that you would be amenable to including in the use permit?
Absolutely. I think my only concern, you can see the pictures during the summer, during the growing season, we already do have a vegetative screen up. I want to know how we can handle that in time, this time of year when, unfortunately the cannas have all died back, but I'm sure we can find some sort of amenable solution here.
When do you expect construction to be completed?
No idea.
That's a great question.
That's a good question. That's the $1 million question.
So usually the timing for this is at the time of final inspection.
Okay.
Okay.
So if that's a timeline that would work for you for this sort of thing, then perhaps we could include that as the timing for the condition.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Madam Chair, those are the matters I wanted to discuss.
All right.
So I have a question, Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Oh, so
Go ahead,
I have a question. So in reference to the consulting about the vegetative screening, so how would that be established? Just on the statement of the applicants that they did that, or, you know, if they're going to show they did the condition, like, do they have to provide some kind of proof?
I would think like I mean, it seems like these are neighbors who have demonstrated that they are able to talk to one another civilly. Mm-hmm. So, but I would think, you know, so I think that conversations similar to the ones they've already had would be ideal. But I would think a minimum would be, you know, a certified letter and an elapsement of, you know, a reasonable amount of time showing them options. But based on what we've already heard from both neighbors, I would expect that they would in fact far exceed that minimum standard.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion if whenever the board is ready for it.
I think we're ready.
Okay. I propose in case, let's see. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving the use permit V-11581-20-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed, with the following additional conditions, which I will also email to staff. Condition 4, applicants agree to maintain the poplar tree shown on the submitted plans in the front yard, or if the tree is destroyed, to maintain a replacement poplar tree in the same location. Condition 5, applicants agree to maintain the stormwater collection and retention infrastructure described in the materials submitted for the record for the December 16th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, unless the zoning administrator determines that alternative stormwater mitigation would be no less protective of the abutting neighbors. Condition 6, applicants agree to install after consultation with the neighbors along the rear property line and maintain additional vegetative screening along the rear property line prior to the final inspection of the new construction. And finally, that the building permit for I think our usual 3-year condition regarding building permits that we've been inserting since COVID. So that's my proposed motion.
Second. Seconded by Ms. Freshman. Mr. Owen, I have a question on condition number 2, or maybe for staff. It refers to a rear porch entry. Is this reference still valid?
Madam Chair, we still have one rear porch, so I do think it's still.
Okay. Thank you. All right. A motion to grant the use permit has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I just want to thank Ms. Gorman as well as the applicants for maintaining a civil discussion and trying to stay informative to the BZA. I think Ms. Gorman's comments about notice for rear neighbors is important, and I know that we will follow up on that. I think that, you know, hopefully we've had a sufficient exposition of the various stormwater issues for this whole neighborhood that are very tricky to resolve. And while Ms. Gorman may not be getting the exact outcome she wants, nonetheless, it was very helpful to hear from her and from the other neighbors. And likewise, I really appreciated the extra work that the applicants did and the thoroughness with which they and their architects used the last 2 months. I thought the 3D drawings in particular were extremely helpful, and I really appreciate them.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. If there's no further comments, I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman? Aye. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant the use permit passes 5-0. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And I agree with Mr. Owen. You guys put in a lot of effort. Appreciated. Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item, please?
Yes, the next item is case number Z-11584-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Ann P. Lane and Scott H. Lane, the owners, to permit a rear setback of 10 feet to the accessory structure, outdoor fireplace, from the rear lot line instead of 25 feet to the wall as required, regarding a new accessory structure, outdoor fireplace in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 1036 26th Road South. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. An alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA see fit to approve the applicant's alternative proposed location 11.75 feet from the rear property line. I'd like you to please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed, and we also have additional speakers who would like to speak on this item.
Mr. Rissy, the supplemental material that for this case, it says supplementary memorandum in opposition to the application.
Correct.
Do you have a name as to who that's from?
I believe that is from one of the individuals looking to speak, the directly adjacent neighbor, Mr. and Mrs. Hopkins.
Thank you. All right. And board members, any questions for staff?
Madam Chair, I will note that the photo, there's also a photo in the supplemental material that is from the applicant as well.
The photo is from the applicant. Preferred location? Okay. All right. Is the applicant with us tonight?
Hi, good evening, Chair Malice. I'm Lauren Riley with Walsh Colucci, representing the applicants Ann and Scott Lane. With me tonight with the firm, we also have Kathy Puskar. We have Ann and Scott Lane here, as well as their landscape architect, Ms. Karen Barnes from Northview Design.
Thank you. Do you, is someone going to speak to the application?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will begin my presentation when ready.
Please.
Thank you. Good evening once again. I'm Lauren Riley with Walsh Colucci, and we are here on behalf of the Lanes. As you probably remember, we were here before you in October with a proposal to locate an outdoor fireplace 10 feet from the rear property line. The use permit application was deferred so that we could explore alternative locations for the fireplace and alternative types of fuel, refine our exhibits with more detail, and further discuss the proposal with the rear neighbors, the Hopkins. After the October BZA hearing, the Lanes seriously explored and considered alternative locations for the fireplace in their backyard, and they developed more detailed exhibits. Given the site constraints in the backyard, the narrowness of the backyard, the location of these existing retaining walls, and the location of existing trees, there are only two viable locations for the fireplace. The first option and the preferred option is to keep the fireplace in the same location as previously proposed in the center of the yard. This is ultimately the best location for the fireplace because it will be screened from view by the Hopkins shed, and it will provide the most space for outdoor seating. While we prefer maintaining the fireplace in the original location, we made further refinements to the design of the fireplace, including lowering the height of the chimney from 12 feet to 9 feet and adding an 8-inch high spark arrestor to the top of the fireplace in consideration of the Hopkins concerns and your input at the last hearing. If there are still concerns regarding this preferred location, the Lanes have provided an alternate location shown in the exhibits, which shifts the fireplace further to the north or to the right side of the preferred location if you're facing the fireplace. This location is farther from the Hopkins property and farther from the rear property line with a minimum setback of 11.75 feet. The refinements to the fireplace with regard to the reduced height of the chimney and added spark arrestor would also apply in this alternate location. Following the October hearing, the Lanes also met with the Hopkins in a socially distanced manner to discuss the proposed options. Unfortunately, they were unable to come to an agreement as the Hopkins continue to prefer a natural gas fireplace, which is not viable for the Lanes. As we discussed in the October hearing, the Lanes previously explored a natural gas fireplace instead of the proposed wood-burning fireplace, but found that the cost of installing natural gas lines would increase the cost in excess of $10,000 and would also require the removal and replacement of recently renovated areas of their backyard. With the lowering of the fireplace chimney and the addition of the spark arrestor in the original location, we believe that any perceived impacts of the smoke will be mitigated. However, to the extent that there is still a concern, we've offered to move the fireplace away from the Hopkins yard and further away from the rear property line. In further response to the Hopkins letter that we just saw this evening, thank you for the reference to the link, Chair Malice. We continue to submit that wood burning fireplaces, fire pits, and grills are permitted throughout Arlington County, which is evidence that the wood burning nature of these items does not pose a significant health or welfare risk to Arlington residents. Additionally, I will note that in April 2019, the BZA unanimously granted an after-the-fact approval for a wood-burning fireplace 7 feet from a rear property line in a nearby neighborhood in Arlington Ridge, with no concern being raised about the impacts of smoke at that hearing. In summary, the revisions to the fireplace design and the option for an alternate location are indicative of the lane's deliberate efforts to address comments from the neighbors and the board within existing constraints. Staff has appropriately concluded that the proposed fireplace will not adversely affect the health or safety of people in the neighborhood, and that it will not be detrimental to the public welfare or conflict with any county policies. As such, we respectfully request that you approve the BZA use permit for the fireplace in the preferred location, or alternatively, in the second location as shown in our exhibits. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Ann Lane.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm Ann Lane, and this is my husband, Scott. We are the homeowners of 1036 South 26th Road and have lived here since 1993. 27 years, 3 children, and 1 remodel later, we can't imagine living anywhere else. Our South Arlington community, Aurora Hills neighborhood, is a wonderful, caring area. And I'm happy to say that Scott and I have taken advantage of opportunities here to participate in a variety of organizations, many of which have been in existence for the better part of 60 years. Our little eyebrow street has served as a gathering spot for a variety of activities over the years, but none more special than the annual Aurora Hills Halloween Parade, which was hatched by 3 of us mothers one evening and has become an annual, widely attended event for neighborhood children and their families for over 15 years. I want to emphasize that throughout this process, beginning as far back as July, we have always been transparent about our plans to create an outdoor room. We made ourselves available to discuss our plans and provided our landscape architect's contact information to all of our neighbors in the event they had any questions and wished to contact her directly. After the October hearing, we went back to the drawing board and made a sincere effort to address comments that were made at the hearing. We came up with a new fireplace design, and while we continue to believe that the original location is the most suitable given the constraints of the backyard, we did identify an alternate location for the fireplace. We shared these proposals in person with the Hopkins on a Sunday afternoon prior to our November 12th filing, and while our meeting was cordial, unfortunately, we were unable to arrive at a mutually agreeable resolution. We are pleased the staff has indicated support for the project and are hopeful the board will approve the application in either the preferred or the alternate location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chair Malice, it does.
Thank you. Mr. Rissy, do we have speakers?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have 2 speakers for this item. The first is Charles Hopkins.
Actually, Madam Speaker, if we could, I'd like my wife Martha to speak first. And just as a clarification, the supplementary memorandum that you mentioned at the beginning of this was in fact submitted by my wife and I.
Thank you. Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes. We are Martha and Charles Hopkins residing at 2633 Fort Scott Drive. Our property backs up against the applicant's backyard. Again, we request the board to deny the applicant's request for a use permit. On October 14th, the applicants requested a deferral of their application for additional time to consider alternative placements and designs of their wood-burning fireplace. On November 8th, the applicants invited us over to discuss their 2 alternatives. One was to reduce the height of the chimney and add a spark arrestor, which changes the height from 12 feet to 9 feet 8 inches. or keep the same design but shift it laterally along our shared property line. These proposals are meaningless and should not be approved. During the October 14th board meeting, what was discussed was that the burden of proof is on the applicants to prove that what they are proposing will not impact the health and welfare of the neighbors, and they haven't done so. And they continue to not address our issues of the smoke. The problem with the proposed fireplaces is simply the smoke. We clearly stated back in August that we opposed the fireplace because we do not want smoke in our yard. During the October hearing, the board made it clear that the smoke is the problem and must be addressed in their alternative proposals. The applicants, however, have shown no interest in addressing the issues of smoke. In the applicant's addendum, they claim that the fireplace's preferred position is the best location because it screens the views of the Hopkins shed and provides the most space for outdoor seating. It's telling when the applicants define the best location as one that provides the most space for outdoor seating. That was not what we heard the board was looking for when considering the best location for a fireplace. For the purposes of this application, what we heard was that the best location is one that does not harm the health, safety of the neighbors or public welfare with toxic smoke. It is such a location does not exist. If a location does not exist, then a fireplace should not exist, regardless of how much outdoor seating it provides.
Thank you, Mrs. Hopkins. Mr. Hopkins, did you want to speak as well?
Yes, please. Our concerns regarding the smoke are not hypothetical. The applicants have begun the use of a wood-burning fire pit in their patio. It creates smoke that affects our health and the use and enjoyment of our property. On Halloween, the fire pit smoke was so bad we couldn't have social distance with our kids and grandkids in our backyard. The smoke was so bad and so prevalent in our front yard that we ended our time with the family earlier than desired. On November 8th, while discussing the applicant's proposals, we brought up the fire pit. We wanted to reiterate to the applicants that the smoke was not hypothetical. We told them that even from just the fire pit, we were being affected. A fireplace with a higher chimney and closer proximity to our yard would only make the smoke worse. We asked if they would please consider just extending the gas pipe feeding their outdoor grill to also service their fireplace. The applicants refused to consider the natural gas and commented that fire pits are legal. The legality of fire pits may be outside the scope of the board's authority, but the response is evident that the applicants are not concerned about the smoke, our health, our safety, or our well-being. The applicants refuse to acknowledge that smoke is a problem. If they cannot acknowledge the problem, there is no solution. To recap and close, number one, the applicant's proposals are in violation of the setback requirements. Number two, through the empirical evidence of the applicant's repeated use of a fire pit, a wood-burning fireplace will also create a significant amount of smoke. And what makes the situation worse is the difference in elevation between our two properties. The smoke will be piped directly into our yard. Number three, wood-burning smoke affects the health and safety of persons in the neighborhood and is detrimental to the public welfare and injures property. We are at a heightened risk due to our age and medical history. Number four, the applicants refuse to implement reasonable alternatives such as changing the fuel source, changing the design of the fireplace, and significantly changing the location of the fireplace in any meaningful way. The nominal alternative presents the same problem of piping in toxic smoke into the adjoining neighbor's yard and consequently ours as well. It's for these reasons we ask the board to deny the applicant's request. And lastly, we want to thank you for this opportunity to again address the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Board members, any questions of staff or the applicants at this time? Looks like no questions. So the discussion is with the board.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, after having heard, from the applicants and the speakers, I don't think that it's been proven by preponderance of the evidence that the condition, would the proposal be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood? I don't think that criteria has been met because I think it's very clear that this particular accessory structure would be injurious, and it hasn't been shown that it wouldn't be. You know, just the example is even a fire pit was causing problems, and this would just exacerbate it because it's closer, you know, and it's permanent. And so I think this fits directly in, you know, with that criterion. And I think this is also a reason why this rule was put in place to begin with, to start with 25 feet for accessory structures, because we've mentioned a structure is much different than a building, you know, and it can be more injurious, really, because there's more activity, more things such as this. So I can't support it just because of that criterion, you know, not being met about it not being detrimental.
Thank you, Mr. Melnick. Any additional comments?
I'm prepared to make a motion when everyone's ready.
Don't see any other comments forthcoming. Go ahead, Mr. Melnick.
Okay. So in case V115 V1158420UP1, I move that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals deny the use permit in this case.
Second, Madam Chair, I'd like to make an additional motion.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Me, Mr. Owen.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Owen.
I think it might be helpful for us to make some findings in this case. And so I would ask unanimous consent that we adopt a more thorough resolution. So I'm going off the text on page 5 of the staff report. This is the proposed resolution approval as advertised. So I would take the first paragraph and then modify all the whereas clauses to instead substitute the following. Whereas the BZA finds, so there will be 3 whereas clauses as opposed to the 4 that are there now. Whereas the BZA finds that in part because of the topography of the area and in part because of the proposal would emit wood smoke, the proposal will adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood. And that's the first whereas. Whereas the BZA finds the proposal will be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. And then the final whereas clause, whereas the BZA has determined that the modification is not compatible with development in the surrounding neighborhood, but that the structure's overall footprint, size, and placement are similar to comparable structures on other properties surrounding the lot in question. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the BZA hereby denies special use permit case number V-11584-20-UP-1. So I'd ask unanimous consent to substitute that for the motion.
So, Mr. Owen, did you omit then the third whereas clause?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think we've heard evidence one way or the other on that. So okay. I'm not sure we need to make a finding there.
So, Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, so Mr. Owen, I did consider the health and safety criteria, but I didn't, you know, as far as like evidence of actual health and safety problems from this particular structure, that's why I, you know, just focused on the public detrimental to public welfare or injurious to the property.
I see.
Would you be willing to just, you know, include that and not include the health and safety, or what do you think?
That's fine. So no finding on the health and safety?
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay, that's fine with me. So I would then insert the in part because of topography and in part because of smoke in the whereas clause that we're retaining. So just to be clear, we're down to 2 whereas clauses. the first whereas clause, whereas the BZA finds the proposal in part because of the topography of the area and in part because the proposal would emit wood smoke, will be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. And then the final whereas clause as I read earlier. So that's my unanimous consent request for substitute motion.
Madam Chair?
The discussion is with the board right now. Let us clarify this motion, and I'm not sure who's asking to be recognized.
This is Ms. Puskar. I was going to have a requested amendment, if possible, to the motion.
Okay, let me make sure that we all understand what's on the table, and then we'll hear from you.
Thank you.
So the first whereas is entirely gone?
Yeah, the first and the third would not be referenced at all. The second whereas would be reversed from a not to a will.
Will, okay.
And then with extra explanation, in part because of the topography of the area, and in part because the proposal would emit wood smoke.
Okay. And then, so that's and then the last one is
the last one
as
you
you
find,
read it before.
Yeah, so it finds against the applicant with regard to compatibility, but in favor of the applicant with regard to footprint size and placement, and takes no position on preservation of natural landform, historic features, or significant trees.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Puskar?
Thank you, Ms. Malice, and thank you to the board for indulging me. Would it be possible, given that the opposition is to the wood burning fireplace, would it be possible to approve the request subject to it being a gas fireplace, given that you didn't have a problem with the location, size, footprint in that motion? The objection was to the wood burning aspect of the fireplace and your belief that it would be injurious. And so I would like to, if possible, preserve the options for the clients to go back again and see if there could be anything to be worked out regarding doing that gas fireplace. Perhaps not, but I think that would be consistent with what I've heard this evening.
So Ms. Puskar, are you suggesting that we approve this use permit provided that the fireplace is gas?
Subject to, correct. Because it appeared as though there was not a concern regarding the size, placement. I forget the three, exactly how you worded them, design, placement, location. It was to the wood versus the wood burning aspect of it. Clearly that is the client's preference, their strong preference. And as we mentioned, we thought because one had been approved before recently that might be okay. But if it's the will of the board that, you know, you're not going to permit wood burning, I'd hate for them to lose the option for the fireplace altogether. If the will of the board is wood burning, then that's their preference, but absent that.
It's typically we have a consensus as to how we're going to proceed when we make a motion like this, but I suppose I'm trying to think of if there's been a precedent where we don't have agreement from the applicant as to our motion. Ms. Freshman?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that approach. I think I generally agree with what Mr. Owen and Mr. Melnick have crafted. I think it was very clear from the first hearing that there was a topography issue and that there was a wood smoke issue, and the deferral was to come up with alternatives. And apart from one relocation, the application is essentially the same. And so I think they had they felt so strongly about it that they were willing to switch to gas and incur that expense, that could have been submitted tonight. That was the purpose of the deferral, in part to come to a resolution, and that, you know, to do it now because on the threat of denial is I'm not comfortable with.
Well, Ms. Freshman, I apologize for that, and perhaps that was our mistake. It was just that we were not ignoring the will of the board or the Hopkins. We did review it. We did look at alternatives. We did change the design to try and address those concerns. That is the preference, and perhaps, you know, I should have listed that alternative, but the request was for the fireplace, and the wood burning became an aspect associated with it, which clearly has led to your motion. And I just would think it would be unfortunate when all the neighbors support the fireplace, and even the Hopkins themselves had said they don't have a problem with the fireplace so long as it's gas. I'm not sure that it will be economically viable. Perhaps it will be, but I would like to preserve that option, if at all possible, if it was in the holiday will of the BZA.
This is unusual.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Owen?
if we were going to consider that, I would want staff to research the enforceability of the condition. I'm not comfortable getting a staff view on enforceability of that condition on the fly here. I would want them to have a chance to think about it. So I guess I agree with Ms. Freshman. I mean, the BZA does not have a rule that prevents reapplication. You know, there's not the 1-year waiting period as there are for other kinds of land use applications. So nothing bars the applicants from trying again. But I agree with Ms. Freshman that the timing is wrong. When the application was very clear up until 5 minutes ago that the applicants were ruling out a gas fireplace. That was the clear statement given to us both verbally and in writing. And so if we're going to pursue a gas fireplace, in my view, it requires more time and study.
Mr. Owen, it would be similar to a condition on a use permit, you know, or on a site plan that is enforceable by the county. We certainly would not be able to permit a wood burning fireplace. And while I appreciate that there may be some consternation that, you know, we were hoping that by moving the fireplace and changing the design, that might mitigate any concerns of the smoke, we are clearly hearing tonight that that has not happened. And, you know, these are single family homeowners, residents of Arlington, and there is a cost of coming forward with the BZA application, even if they were to refile. And once again, I would just ask you all to consider this exception, given that, once again, the Hopkins concerns was the wood burning fireplace. We thought by moving it, by reducing the height of the fireplace, by adding the spark arrestor, that could mitigate those concerns. Clearly, it hasn't mitigated those concerns for either the Hopkins or the board. But we would ask that we just be allowed to have the fireplace, given that you all agree with the location, design, and placement, and that there just be a condition that it not be wood burning and that it be gas. Because the alternative would be there is no fireplace, and now you may have the fire pit that the Hopkins don't prefer either. So it's kind of a solution that would work for everyone and mitigate any of these negative smoke impacts that seem to be mentioned.
All right. Right now, we have a motion on the table to deny. And we've made some amendments to it. So the question is, do we can vote on this amendment? If the amendment passes, then it's a denial. If the amendment, if the motion does not pass, we can make a different motion. So I think, you know, to stay in proper order, we need to vote on the motion that's on the table. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. On the motion to deny the use permit with the conditions that we have proposed, the findings that we have proposed, I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick? Mr. Melnick? Can you?
Can't hear him.
Mr. Melnick. Let me skip over Ms. Clark?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. We need to figure out how to reach Mr. Melnick. He seems to be frozen, I guess.
Frozen.
Yeah, he is frozen.
So was I correct in hearing Mr. Owen to say that we could come back with a gas fireplace without having to wait a year?
I think that's a question for Mr. Rissy.
That's
Saying yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no prejudice here.
Or I guess they'll just keep using the wood burning fire pit. So, okay, thank you.
All right. I don't know, at this point, we're going to have to count Mr. Melnick as absent. Waiting to see if he should come back, but we're going to need his vote in the record. Gonna give it another minute. I suppose, Mr. Rissy, you don't have any magic either.
No magic here, Madam Chair. I am going to send him an email asking him to log out and rejoin. That's the best I can do at this point, I think.
Okay.
I sent him an email.
Well,
all right, thank you.
He's quicker than I am then.
All right, he has
got it. He's left.
He has logged out. There he is.
Welcome back, Mr. Melnick.
Mr. Melnick, if you're rejoining us, I will note that your microphone is muted.
Okay, it's on.
There we go.
Mr. Melnick, I don't know where we lost you. We were voting on the motion to deny the use permit.
Yeah.
With the findings as Mr. Owen had outlined them, and as you and Mr. Owens had outlined them. And so we skipped over you in the roll call. I'm circling back to you for your vote on the motion to deny. So far, we have, everyone has voted to deny.
Yes, I vote aye.
Okay, aye. So the motion to deny this use permit has passed on a vote of 5-0. And Ms. Puskar, you will talk to Mr. Rissy about next steps, correct? You're muted. All right. Thank you, everyone.
I said correct. We will do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item, please?
Thanks to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, the next item is case number V-11602-20-UP-2. It is a use permit request by Courtney P. Ogilvie and Suzanne M. Laus, the owners, to permit a street setback of 19.7 feet to the front porch, 19 feet to the porch eve instead of 21 feet to the porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eve as required from North Vernon Street, and to permit a right side setback of 4.5 feet to the porch and porch eve, and 5.6 feet to the accessory structure shed instead of 8 feet to the shed and porch, 5 feet to the porch eve as required from the side property line, regarding new front porch and shed in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 2059 North Vernon Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Any questions for staff? Okay, I see that the applicants have joined us, Mr. Ogilvie and Ms. Leos.
Yes,
Yes.
Would you like to make a presentation on behalf of your application?
Yes, we would. And good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and staff. My name is Susie Leas, and I'm here with my husband, Court Ogilvie, as you can see. First, we want to thank you for your service to the county. And we really do appreciate that the county has created a virtual platform for these meetings. Our application discusses our proposal in detail, and of course, we've reviewed the county's report. So to summarize our application, our proposal is to build a covered porch and a front porch that is in a small side shed. And we really would enjoy having the extra space. You know, I've always wanted a front porch and admire the porches in the neighborhood. The porch would really make for easier ingress, egress, which will allow us to age in place. And I'd like to add, we love our neighborhood and our neighbors. The porch would be a place for working from home in the milder weather, of course. And both of us have been working from home since March, which most of you have been doing as well. And then the bike shed would really support fitness and recreation, and also bike commuting when we're back to that time, probably next summer, when we're allowed to commute back to work. So, Court, would you like to add
Sure.
something?
Yeah. So just to continue on, we don't have a contractor yet, but we do have an architect, of course. We've shared our plans with our neighbors all along, and we're proposing something that we think is consistent with the style of the neighborhood, also with the modest size of our home. And then lastly, I'll just share that we've got really good relations with all of our neighbors, and we want to keep it that way. So we will, if we gain approval, we'll strive to ensure that the project has a positive impact, not just on our house, but on the entire neighborhood. So thanks in advance for your consideration, and happy to answer questions, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Ogilvie and Ms. Leas. Any questions for the applicants?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Owen?
I did fairly thorough neighbor outreach. We got a lot of written comments back from almost all of the neighbors, but the neighbor on the side where the bike shed would be seemed to be missing from the packet. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about your conversations with the property owner on that parcel.
Sure. So we actually spoke to that property owner who we're very friendly with, who we call a friend, before we even engaged the architect. So I don't know why we don't have a letter, but we're certainly friendly with them and on great terms. And the only concern that they proposed or identified was whether we were going to stay in the house or not, and we are. And they told us in person they were fine with it. And again, if we got approval, we would definitely work with them and with all of our neighbors to make sure that it was as minimally disruptive as possible.
Thank you. What are the names of those neighbors?
Zia and Pam Aim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ogilvie. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, the discussions with the board.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Melnick.
I'd like to make a motion.
Certainly.
Okay, so in case C11602220UP2, move that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals grant the use permit request with conditions, including the 3-year validity period that we've discussed.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant the use permit has been carries, and use permit has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, enjoy the whatever period of confinement you have left.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're all wondering what that is going to be, huh?
Right, I know. Yes. Thanks again.
Take care.
Yeah.
Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item?
Yes, the next item is case number V-11603-20-UP-4. It is a use permit request by Daniel and Carolyn Usinski, the owners, to remove a street setback of 20 feet to the screen porch, 18.8 feet to the porch eve, instead of 21 feet to the screen porch, 19.5 feet to the eve as required from 19th Street South regarding a new rear screen porch on a corner lot in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 1820 South Quincy Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Riss. Mr. Owen.
I just note on the application, we seem to have only the signature of one owner, but there are two owners listed on the financial disclosure. So I'm not sure what we need to do about that, if anything.
I'm not sure if that was a question to me or not, but I don't believe we need to do anything. We can ask the applicants who appear to be here together, and they may be able to speak to that. But I have no reason to believe that Ms. Usinski does not want the screen porch.
Do we need the consent of all owners or any owner to do a permit?
In the past, we've had applications on a number of occasions where one of the two owners has signed the application form, and I don't think we've had any issues with that in the past.
Good. Thank you.
All right, well, it's something to look into. Any more questions for staff? All right, I see that the applicant, the Usinskis, are with us. Good evening. Would you like to make a statement on behalf of your application?
Oh,
you guys are muted.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we were double muted. So first and foremost, thank you so much to Stephen and the rest of the board. We know during this time it's parallel to get logistics and timing together like this. So we really appreciate you giving us a platform to be able to state our case and keep things running in Arlington County. We consider this our forever home, and we've talked to a number of our neighbors. We have a statement of support that we included in our application. It does have signatures from all of our surrounding neighbors that would be in any way, shape, or form affected by this, and they're all very excited and supportive of the construction. Lastly, we have two children that attend Claremont Elementary. My wife, Carolyn Usinski, she's actually a special education teacher there. And this outdoor space, when we initially ventured forward, was hopefully going to be used as, a teaching space for her, a place for our children during COVID, since online learning is the platform of the foreseeable future. And it's going to help us with enclosure spaces for use in all weather circumstances throughout the year. And we think it matches the number of the other properties in our neighborhood that have similar screened-in porches. So thank you for your time, and that's pretty much all we have.
All right, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Board members, any questions for the applicant?
Is that
Ms.
Carolyn Usinski we see? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
That would be
Are you Carolyn Usinski?
We would want to add, I am Carolyn. I just was a total accident that my signature wasn't on there, just a total mistake because I was a part of getting the signatures and a part of the planning and everything. And obviously, yes,
So you agree?
Yes, I agree.
It's my fault.
Of course.
You're right.
Of course. Mr. Rissy, I just note, there is a condition that the screen porch won't be enlarged, enclosed, or built over. That is because it takes it to a different category, correct? Different considerations.
Correct. And a similar condition is the reason the applicants are here tonight, because the deck itself was previously built with a use permit that had a condition that it couldn't be built over.
Right. All right. Incrementalism. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Ms. Freshman?
Make a motion?
Go ahead, please.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving use permit V-11603-20-UP4, subject to the conditions listed, and adding the condition about 3-year time limit.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant the use permit passes on a vote of 5-0. The use permit is granted.
Congratulations.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
You take care.
You too. Thank you.
Good evening. Mr. Melnick, you know that you are, your video's not on, or at least it's not on for me. Is that intentional?
Actually, no, it's not. I don't know what happened. I seem to be, there's some difficulty, but.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, there you are. It's just that way I make sure I see if you need anything. All right, Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item, please?
The next item is case number V-11604-20-VA-1. It is a variance request by Matt and Ashley Patak. The owner is to permit a lot coverage of 53% instead of 40% as required regarding the retention of the existing driveway and parking pad for a second-story addition and proposed front porch and rear deck to an existing one-family dwelling on a pipe stem lot in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 5114 6th Street North. Staff recommends the board adopt the proposed resolution approving the variance with conditions, and I'd like you to please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Are there any questions for staff?
Madam Chair, just to describe the supplemental materials for the record.
There is a letter of support and some photos, which I have included in our PowerPoint, because I think they're descriptive and show the driveway entrance.
Thank you.
All right. The applicant, Matt and Ashley Patak.
PTAC. Yes, we're here.
Good evening. Is there anything you'd like to say on behalf of your application?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for your time this evening. We appreciate the board's review. We've outlined the reasons that we feel that the retention of our existing driveway is justified, but the thing that we want to highlight the most is safety. The existing parking pad that we have today has been in place for several years, well over a decade from before we bought the house. And it allows us a space where we can turn around on our property without having to reverse down our long, narrow driveway. So that is the number one reason for keeping everything existing as is today. Within the supplemental material, the thing that I wanted to highlight with pictures of the driveway that are on the screen right now, within the past few years, the county has recently added striping to the street. You can see there in that image, which was not in the previous image. That is kind of indicative that the county has already recognized this intersection as having being kind of a safety issue when they themselves have added striping as a traffic calming measure. So we just wanted to highlight that. That was the main piece of the supplemental package that was not in our original material. I believe that is for us. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
All right. Any questions of the applicant or staff? Mr. Owen?
Madam Chair, thank you. I want to thank the applicants for reaching out to neighbors and getting written feedback from most of them. But one was missing at 5112 6th Street. That's the neighbor that's sort of in the crook of the pipe stem there that abuts both the driveway and the pad.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if the applicants could talk about your outreach to the property owner at that location.
Yes, we did speak with him. We weren't able to get a letter from him, but actually he did send an email literally today with his support. And actually, I believe that he is on the call right now. I don't know if he wants to speak up or not, David, if you want to, but
if we have a speaker here, I don't know if he signed up, we will call him.
okay. But we did have an email support that we received from him today.
What's his name?
David, I believe his last name is pronounced Wong.
Okay. And if you could please forward that email that you received to Mr. Rissy, that would be helpful.
I will do that.
For the record. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one other question.
Go ahead, Mr.
It seems like there's 3 cars parked in this photograph that's up right now on the parking pad. And I just wonder about the size of the parking pad. I mean, I'm totally bought in. Oh, maybe 2 of those cars are, I can't tell if all 3 of those are on your lot or not.
They are not.
But I'm bought into the idea that you need enough space to turn around. But I'm just wondering if the parking pad is the minimum necessary to allow for that, or if it's bigger than you need for just a turnaround. Can you speak to that issue?
I believe that it's the appropriate size for what we need to turn around. And with regards to your question with those 3 cars, what's difficult to see in the picture is there is a fence separating my property 5114 and that other property 5112 right in front of it. So that top black car and the white car are belong to my neighbor. Only the black car, the set on the bottom, belongs to us. That's my wife's car. And then what you can't see because of the roof line, it would be my car parked just to the right of that. So having the space that we have now allows both cars to back out safely without having to move either one of them so the other one could get out.
So the dimensions of the pad exclusive of the driveway. So if we're just, I'm looking at the plat now. So I'm ignoring the whole 10 foot of the driveway all the way to the back of your house. I'm just talking about the pad that is east of the driveway. It looks from the plat like it's about 40 feet by 20 feet. That sound about right? So a total of 50 feet by 20 feet, including the driveway area.
That sounds right. I don't have the plat pulled up in front of me.
Yeah. So I guess I have a little bit of skepticism about whether or not that you really need all that for safety reasons. But that was thank you for addressing that. But that was my question. Thank you.
I can say that it allows for 2 cars to sit side by side so that neither one impacts the other having to whenever my wife or I have to leave for work, whenever we do return to work.
Thank you.
I want to hear from Mr. Wong if he's here, but I do have some more questions. Mr. Wong, are you with us? I don't get a response from Mr. Wong. If Mr. Petak, if you see him, join us later. Just alert us. But I'm not getting a response. Mr.
Hello,
Wong?
this is Wong. Yes.
Okay. Ann Cody White?
I'm here.
Is that Mr. Wong?
Hi, this is Mr. Huang, David Huang. Xianchao Huang. Yeah.
I see.
Hi, I'm living at 5112 6th Street North, Arlington.
Would you like to speak?
Sure. I'm not. I won't against the proposal from our neighbor Matt on this driveway issue. So we are fine with the driveway issue.
You support the application. Okay.
Madam Chair.
So,
anything else, Mr. Wong?
Hi, this is Olivia. I live together with David. So today we're only talking about the driving pad, right? So we don't really have any opinion. It doesn't really bother us. The only thing concerning us was more the addition, the second floor addition that is blocking our sunlight. But I think it's different issue from what we are discussing today, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Then we don't have anything against the existing driveway.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
So I just wanted to be clear, because I was looking at the plat, and it's just, I'm still a little unclear about, what's going to stay and what's going to go. So it looks like, so is the whole ad going to stay then? Because it says amend, keep existing parking pad. And so, I just need a clarification as to what is going to stay. Is the driveway and the pad going to stay pursuant to the amendment?
I have the same question because I also see that there is a note that it's going to be, something's going to be demoed.
Yeah, that's confusing me. That combined with the amendment.
I see our builder, Julie, our agent, Julia Wolfgang, has raised her hand. Maybe she would like to clarify.
Ms. Wolfgang, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. We wanted to be here to support our client this evening. So what you're looking at in the existing plat is what we submitted with the building application for the addition that's being currently built. And this is what we, in order to meet the lot coverage, because of the long driveway consumes about 50% of the allowable lot coverage, we had to show what we would have to remove and in order to move forward with the building of the project, which was a priority for the PTAC since they were expecting a new child and wanted to move forward on the development of the house. So, they decided they wanted to apply for the variance for the adjustment of increasing the lot coverage. And basically what they're asking, what you're seeing there is what we would have to remove to comply with existing lot coverage allowances. What the variance is asking for is to leave all of that in place, which has been in place for my understanding for several decades. The PTACs purchased the property with this in place, was in good faith and did not know that there would be an issue with building the addition or that it would ever have to be removed. So we're asking to not disturb what is currently in place. The driveway is very narrow. There's a fence line on either side of the driveway. And in terms of the depth of what is there, when they pull two cars up together and side by side, they pull forward enough so that when one of them is leaving, they can back up and make a radius turn. If we remove part of the pad that is there, it would be difficult for them parked side by side to make a proper radius turn to turn back, reverse the car back towards the house to turn and drive forward. So we're really requesting that we leave what is in place, has been in place for quite a long time. Removing what's there could impact, the water runoff or silt things like that. So we're really requesting that they be allowed to leave what's there. I can personally attest to having tried to back up out of this driveway. It's not easy to do, and it's very dangerous. So it could be dangerous for the family as well as for the community. When you're looking at the photo that's on the screen, their driveway is the one all the way to the right.
We understand.
So, yes. So the second driveway that you see there, next to it, just left of that, is to the other house that we were just speaking to the owner of, I believe. So
Ms. Wolfgang, sorry to cut you off,
yeah.
but I think the issue, I mean, we understand what you are saying. We have a condition that should we grant this variance, it would be based in accordance with the survey and the drawings attached to the staff report, which seem to indicate that these are going to be removed. So that's something we need to work out.
Okay. My understanding was that we needed to provide a survey to the county of what this is the last survey that we did for the building, and this shows what was being removed. This is what you're seeing there is the area in red is the actual existing driveway, and we're asking to be able to just leave that in place.
Yeah, we understand that, but we do have this condition that references a plat, so that's something for us to work through.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Ms. Freshman, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, what was just discussed helped clarify it. I was confused by the conversation and the photograph that showed the 3 vehicles, and I thought the applicant said that part of that pad and some of those vehicles belong to others. So I think in addition to the confusion on the exhibit, which shows it being removed, I think we also need some clarification on what we saw in that photograph, because that made it look as if there was parking for 3 or 4 cars. And then the question would be, can some of it be removed and the variance be lessened just to accommodate their 2 vehicles and turning radiuses, but not necessarily others? So that was why part of the most recent explanation of the hatched red area makes sense for a building permit, but it doesn't really necessarily help us understand exactly how the existing, does everything existing remain if this variance is granted? Can it be lessened, or are others using it? Is it a shared pad, for example? Because it sounded to me like others were using it, or more than their 2 vehicles. Yes, sir.
Rissy, I want to hear from Mr. Rissy, who may enlighten us a little bit. Mute.
I'll try and clarify some of the issues that have been raised. First, this is the plat that has been submitted, and it does have notes that they are going to keep the existing parking pad and to keep the existing 315-foot strip that would be required to be removed from the side of the driveway. So I don't think there is an issue with the conditions, because the plat does have notes saying they're going to keep those portions.
Okay. But do you see where it says it's going to be demolished?
Yes, I understand that this is what they submitted to obtain their building permit, and that they've submitted the variance with notes contrary to what they submitted for their building permit, because they had to do the building permit by right. I'll also note that the parking area where this white car and this black car, they're on a separate property separated by a fence. You can see a wood fence noted here on the plat, and there's a wood fence that runs all the way down the driveway as well. You can see the note for the wood fence here and the note for the wood fence here. So that black car here is sitting here across the fence. That white car here is sitting at the end of the driveway here, again across the fence. So they're not shared areas between the 2 properties.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. That is helpful. Is this customary sequence, Mr. Rissy, that the building permit is requested first based on an approval of a variance?
It's not staff's recommendation, and they don't need the variance. To be fair, they obtained a building permit showing a by right option. The by right option just requires, 1,300 square feet of removal of driveway. So if you deny it, they have a path forward. It's to remove 1,300 square feet of driveway. The variance came after the building permit in this case, just to keep it in place to not have to remove it.
Okay.
And no, it's not our typical or recommended order of operations, but
all right.
They had reasons they wanted to move with the house, so things happen.
May I address?
Mr. Petak?
Yes, so we understand we didn't necessarily do it in the proper order, but as you can maybe see behind me, my wife is holding our 3-week-old child, and we wanted to move forward as quickly as possible with our build, knowing that we could apply for the variance after the build had started. So that was the reason why we went out of order, is because we wanted to accelerate our building project.
And you recognize that you could live with either option.
We really prefer to have the parking pad, but we do recognize that that we could have either option.
Okay, thank you.
So, Madam Chair?
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, so I have a sort of a question and a concern, because I look at the tax map, where the county map is showing the property, with the property highlighted.
Yes.
Okay, and I noticed on here it looks like there's 4 properties with pipe stems. There's one right next door. Okay, there's across Edison Street, it looks like there's 3 pipe stems all in a row. And I see in the staff report that there's just sort of a conclusion that this is not common or recurring, but I don't see really, any specifics.
6
because
right
it would be
here.
the condition about not so general recurring. And we don't really have any evidence of that in particular, because if this one picture shows 4, and I don't know how long they are, but they look, the 3 across Edison Street look pretty long. But just how common this is, or whether it should be something the county board takes up when you're dealing with pipe stems. So does Mr. Rizzi have any comment on that?
Yes, I will say we don't have an analysis enumerating exactly how many pipe stems are in the county. It's just not something that is easily available to analyze without actually doing an aerial survey of every parcel in the county. We don't have any kind of database of our pipe stem lots. I will say the county board did revise the allowances for pipe stems within the last decade, and they did make some pretty significant changes so that you can't build new ones without going to the county board. And they also divvied up certain ones that only the county board could modify allowances on, and certain ones that they allowed to go to the BZA for modifications. This is one of those that falls into the latter category, that is able to be modified by the Board of Zoning Appeals as opposed to needing to be modified by the county board.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Owen?
So what Mr. Rissy was just talking about was going to be my question, and I was about satisfied until the very last bit of it. Variances, the BZA is always allowed to do a variance. The nature of variance is to say the whole code is screwed up and the BZA needs to swoop in and make an exception to the code that we're allowed to do by state law. It's not it's our right to do under state law. It's not a grant like a use permit. by the county board in the ordinance. So if the county board had said this is one of the ones the BZA can grant, then we wouldn't be doing it by variance, we'd be doing it by use permit. And that's why Mr. Melnick's question is relevant, because he's saying, well, how often are we going to have to do these? Doesn't almost every and should the county board revisit it? I guess where I am generally, and let me just move on to say generally, I'm sympathetic to this application. I think this has been here for long enough, and I think the staff report, this predated some of the coverage tightenings that the county board has done. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So the lot coverage has been reduced since this was built this way. It's also a safety issue, so I'm sympathetic to some kind of variance here. I think I would feel more comfortable if we cleaned up the plat situation, and I hesitate to do this because it's just a driveway, but ideally I would like a turning radius analysis for something like this. Standard parking space is 18 feet long, so even if you had a tandem parking space after the driveway width, that would still be 46 feet total. And I feel like this might be longer than that. So I'm just concerned that because this is a location that it's hard for us as BZA members to walk by on the sidewalk and visually inspect, that we might be giving more, and variances are supposed to be a very high standard, so sort of a emergency ripcord only is absolutely necessary. So I would feel more comfortable approving this if we had a little bit better information about the details, but fundamentally I'm in favor of a variance so that the PTACs don't have to pull out a strip of their 10-foot driveway and make it an 8-foot driveway in addition to completely getting rid of the parking pad. That doesn't seem like a reasonable outcome to me. So that's not the outcome I would want to have at the end of this. But the current parking pad it's big, and I'm not comfortable with that either.
Ms. Wolfgang, your hand is up. Are you seeking recognition?
My apologies, I didn't realize it was still up.
That's okay.
Depending on what you require, we can certainly revise the plat to show without the red area for the parking pad. And if you would require some other type of analysis for turning, we could work with the client to do that.
Thank you.
I think that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that suggest that we're moving towards a deferral on this matter? Ms. Freshman?
Well, I agree with Mr. Owen, and I think just we've had other applications where plats being included or not included or unclear have caused a lot of heartburn. And I think to the extent that if you look at this tax map, there are actually 6 pipe stems if just on this view. The frequency is an issue, but I think in this particular case, it would be helpful to have an exhibit that shows what is reasonable and necessary. And if it turns out to be slightly less than what's there and reduces the percentage of the coverage requested, then that would be good as well. So yes, I would say that would, because of the necessity to create the exhibit, it would have to be a deferral.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right. Ms. Wolf, I think, Mr. Rissy, is this a matter that can be handled in 1 month? You've got a.
You're muted.
Only if the advertisement doesn't change. We'll be advertising the January cases next week, so it would need to have the same advertisement essentially.
So if they actually receive less coverage than they asked for, that's within the current advertisement, right?
Correct.
So I think that makes it possible that we could take this up again in January.
Yes.
And I don't know who said yes. Was that Ms. Freshman?
Yeah, I can make a motion to that effect.
Okay, I just want to check if Ms. Wolfgang is still here.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Could you provide that information?
I believe we could do a revised drawing of the plat for you to show that area. And then we could also look for some standards for turning radius that we could submit with the application. Do you think that would be sufficient?
Mr. Rissy, when would you need that?
I would say probably in no more than 3 weeks from today.
I believe that will be possible. If I talk with the rest of my office here tomorrow and determine that we would not be able to provide the information in that time frame, I could let you know tomorrow. But I do believe we could meet that requirement.
Okay.
And if you choose to go to February, that'll be fine with us too.
Because it doesn't preclude the project they're currently working on going forward.
That's correct. We're scheduled to complete that portion of the project in April. So February would also be fine as well.
Would you prefer February?
Perhaps that might be better because of the holidays, and we may have to engage the surveyor as well. We're close to the holidays, so I think perhaps maybe February would give us a little more. No.
We would be fine.
Actually, I just spoke with David Foster, who's the principal of our company, and he said we would be fine with next month.
All right. Good. Okay.
Great.
All right. So thank you, Ms. Wolfgang. Is there a motion to defer? Ms. Freshman, were you going to start that?
Sure. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals in case of V-11604-20-BA-1 defer to the January 13, 2021 BZA meeting for purposes of presenting revised plat and other materials as discussed.
Second.
Is that Mr. Owen?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I would just clarify that this is also in part to the applicant can clearly demonstrate that the proposed or revised depth of the parking pad is the minimum necessary. So it will make things easier if the parking pad winds up being a little bit smaller after the analysis.
All right. We have a motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Owen to defer to the January 13 BZA hearing. Is there any other discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to defer to January passes. We will see you in January.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Petak. Enjoy your holiday.
And little Petak.
Yeah, little Petak. Thank you. Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item, please?
Case number V-11605-20-UP-1 is a use permit request by Douglas and Amanda Batchelet, the owners, to permit left side setback of 5.1 feet to the wall and eave from the side lot line instead of 10 feet to the wall, 6 feet to the eave as required, and to permit an aggregate side yard of 14.1 feet instead of 18 feet as required in the R6 zoning district regarding a two-story left side addition to a one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 976 North Madison Street. Staff recommends the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Any questions of staff? I see that our applicant, the Douglas and Amanda Batchelet. Did I get that right?
Bachelet, yes, close, very close.
Batchelet. Well, we could even make it more French, right?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything you'd like to say for your application?
Yes, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Chair Malice, Vice Chair Owen, and the rest of the Arlington BZA. We just want to build a small side addition. It will allow us to enlarge a small bedroom in our home and add a home office and mudroom. It's going to continue to reflect the classic colonial appearance in Dominion Hills, where we have lived for over 12 years. We have the support of all of our neighbors, every property touching ours, as well as additional neighbors across the street, as well as our civic association, and it will allow us to make this house our forever home. Like I said earlier, we've lived in this house for over 4 years and in the neighborhood for over 12, and we thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any speakers, Mr. Rissy? No speakers. Okay. Any questions for the applicants? Okay, the discussion is with the board.
Motion?
Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-11605-20-UP1, subject to conditions listed in the proposed resolution with the 3-year time limit.
A second.
Second.
Motion is seconded by Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to approve the use permit carries on a vote of 5-0, and the use permit is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right. It was very good application. It's very helpful when you have all your neighbors' support. Thank you. Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item, please?
The next item is case number V-11606-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Sean and Christine Lyons, the owners, to permit a rear setback of 15.5 feet to the deck instead of 21 feet as required from the rear lot line, and to permit a rear setback of 13.5 feet to the accessory structure pergola instead of 25 feet as required. Regarding a new deck and accessory structure pergola in the R6 zoning district on the premise known as 34 South Park Drive. Staff recommends the board adopt the proposed resolution denying the use permit. 2 additional alternative resolutions and conditions have been provided should BZA see fit to approve the application as advertised or with a minimum rear setback of 16.5 feet. I'd like you to please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed, including a alternative design by the applicant and their designer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rissy. Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Owen.
So there's 4 different options in front of us, denial and 3 different versions of approval, is that right?
I think we have denial and 2 options for approval.
Plus one more that came in, or is that subsumed in one of the ones in the packet?
I don't have a resolution prepared, speaking to the supplemental material, but I'm sure one could be crafted.
The staff oppose all the different proposals or just some of them?
Staff is only opposed to the one that was submitted and analyzed.
Okay, so it's possible that staff might support one of the alternatives.
Correct.
Okay. I had a question about the table on page 3. It seems uncommon for the table like this to include lots of information about conforming parcels, especially in this. A number of conforming parcels in the table are quite a distance from the subject property. And I felt like staff was trying to provide information, but I wasn't getting it. So what is the relevance of the not proximate and also conforming parcels that are listed in that table?
I would say that staff analyzed a decent sized geographic area looking for comparable structures that have setbacks that were equal to or less than the structures requested by the applicants, and we weren't able to find them. So we tried to illustrate what we could find, things that were closer. Unfortunately, this area is one with some very long parcels, and so there are some very long rear setbacks for some of the surrounding properties. So we found the ones that were as close to what was being requested as we could, given the plats we had access to.
Thank you. An additional question. In staff's analysis, is the proposed unenclosed pergola evaluated using the same criteria as if it were an enclosed addition?
So the pergola is considered an accessory structure, which has the same setback requirements as an enclosed space. So I would say, yes, the analysis is probably pretty similar.
Okay. To what extent, if any, would the proposed deck without the pergola require use permit relief?
It is advertised at 15.5 feet instead of 21 feet as required.
So it's high enough off the ground to require use permit relief?
Oh, anything above 8 inches is required to meet the setback requirements.
Yep.
It's only that it doesn't count towards lot coverage if it is less than 4 feet.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
Any other questions for staff? All right. We have the applicants here with us. Would you like to make a presentation? That's Sean and Christine Lyons. Would you like to make would you like to make a presentation?
We would. Thank you very much. So good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and Mr. Rissy. I'm Sean Lyons, and this is my wife, Christine Lyons. First, we'd like to thank the zoning office for their time and consideration of our application. We've reviewed their recommendations and are eager to find a happy medium to allow for our request to be granted. We first looked to build our addition. When we first looked to build our addition, we were looking to build a smaller landing and stairs to the rear and build out a patio structure. However, the more we thought about it and how we live, we wanted to get our outdoor area off of grade level to help us get above ground and better enjoy our backyard space. Additionally, we are expecting our second child, and having an outdoor space in which our children can safely play is very important to us. And finally, we both have elderly parents that have health problems that prevent them from climbing stairs, which was the main motivation for renovating our home. We are having a space created for them in which they can sleep and bathe on the main level, and it is our hope that they can enjoy the outdoors with the addition of an above-grade deck. And when we look at our design, our contractor informed us that we should really try to keep our request for a rear encroachment to 15 feet or more from the rear property line, as that's the line that BZA tries to maintain. And we did not realize that the overhangs on the pergola would be counted as a structure since has open rafters. And we understand the zoning office's recommendation to keep the structure to 16.5 feet from the rear property line since a 2-story addition was approved in our neighborhood with that setback. But respectfully submit that what we are asking for is not nearly as imposing on the rear setback or our neighbors as a 2-story addition. And we do not think that this request is out of line with the current structures in the neighborhood. And I think in the additional materials, you'll see 26 South Park Drive has a deck that is very close to the property line, as does 125 South Buchanan Street, 105 South Park Drive, and 20 South Aberdeen Street. And not that the Arlington Forest Citizens Association is supporting this, because as an elected member of that, we do not support variance and use permits. But as the vice president of the south side of the neighborhood, I do share the priority of preserving the character of our neighborhood to not allow neighbors to infringe on the well-being of other neighbors. And in fact, we have received enthusiastic support from our neighbors for this project. And we are hoping that we can keep the proposed depth of the deck as is for the structure and take 2 feet off of the pergola. So the setback of the entire structure would be limited to 15.5 feet from the rear property line. And we looked at this with our contractor and came up with some revised designs, which were sent to Mr. Rissy by our builder, Stephen, who is Tinter, who is on the call as well. And we were hoping that since this is so similar to the original design, that the BZA might entertain a revised resolution to grant our request with the overhangs removed from the pergola so the structure maintains 15.5 feet the rear property line. We hope that these details provide an understanding of our goals, and we are open to feedback and compromise as we appreciate that we are asking y'all for an exception to the rule. And our goal is to hopefully have a resolution from this. So if we can live with the 16.5 feet, obviously we would prefer the 15.5 feet, but we just want to have a functional deck. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Owen, do you have your hand up? Or on purpose?
Well, I didn't, but now I do.
Now you do.
So I'm a little bit confused as to the 16.5 versus 15.5 feet. So are you proposing, is your most recent proposal that the pergola and the deck would both be 15.5 feet from the rear?
That is correct. That's what we're hoping to be accepted, but the design is easily scaled to 16.5 feet. So if the 15.5 foot is just too much to ask, we live with a further compromise as well. So our builder is on the call. He can speak to it.
The staff report proposes 13. So is the pergola closer to the back line, or is it farther away from the back line?
It is closer. They had overhangs that go towards the backyard and
I see.
The deck.
So it's like the eave kind of.
Yes,
right?
yes. So the plan would.
I see. And so, okay, got it. So the footprint of the deck is flush with the footprint of the floor of the deck and the floor of the pergola end in the same place regardless. And what we're talking about is the overhang of the ornamentation on the top of the pergola where maybe ivy would grow or something, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so your most recent proposal would pull back the top portion to be flush with the base of the deck. Is that correct? Do I understand that correctly? And all of that you're proposing most recently would be 15.5 feet. Is that right?
But again,
I'm sorry. So the proposal you submitted today, am I correct to understand that that would all be at 15.5 feet? All the parts vertically would all be 15.5 feet away. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just following up on which drawing, how is this drawing that's in the supplemental package different than what's in the original packet?
So I believe our builder raised his hand, and he can definitely speak to
All
that with more clarity than we can.
All right, thank you. Where is that initials ST?
That's correct. So I'm
Hello.
Stephen Tinter with Cook Brothers.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so what we did is, like I said, we really looked at the pergola that we had originally designed, having that 2-foot overhang. We looked at that as an eave, which has additional allowable encroachments, so we didn't really think it was a big deal. But after we read the staff report, we thought maybe that the issue was that the overall structure would be at 13.5 instead of the 15.5. So we looked at removing those. So the difference between the original application and the one that we've submitted today is basically that we cut off those 2-foot overhangs to keep everything in line with the deck. The other reason that we tried to get these drawings revised to be resubmitted today was this design would also work if the board decided to take staff's alternate resolution to approve it at 16.5, we could just take that extra foot off of the deck in that design. So it would basically be that same exact design. I think that's what staff was saying that they would support. We feel that the deck would be a little bit more functional at 10 foot, but as the Lions had mentioned, they're looking to compromise and get some resolution on this. So we were hoping that having those drawings to illustrate how we could comply with the zoning office's recommendation and maybe have that extra foot at the same time might be amenable to the board tonight.
I guess it's a question from Mr. Rissy. Is there something that shows your alternative resolution? There's no drawing for that, right?
No, Madam Chair.
It's just numeric.
Correct.
So, Mr. Tinter, if you were to take another foot off of the deck, would that mean that the stairs get more narrow, or you would take it off someplace else?
No, ma'am, it would just be on the deeper portion of the deck, because that's the portion that's encroaching. Actually, that area right outside the door, that area could be built most likely by right. I think we can squeeze everything back by that foot and still maintain the stairs and everything without sacrificing functionality there.
Okay. All right. So we do have a question of, do we have sufficient documentation to understand what we're approving? Anybody else have their hand up? Mr. Owen?
I'll throw out there, we're arguing over a foot. I don't mean to overcomplicate things, but I'm actually ready to approve the original proposal. So I don't know if there's a majority support for that. But I think that would make it less complicated if we just approve the original proposal with the original plans. But I don't know if there's enough other support on the BZA for that.
So it's the original. It's the original with the overhang. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, so I'm, when I hear, like, when an application comes forth like this, and the applicant themselves are saying that they would comply with the staff report, which actually reflects, a measurement that was actually found in the neighborhood, I generally jump on that, just because it seems, fun, because of, what I'd be concerned about is creep, just creeping a foot by a foot. And so that's my concern. And my other concern, though, like Madam Chair was saying, is whether, with the plans and the drawings in this application, if we can go with this, whether that's too much of a material change, chopping a foot off. So I'd ask Mr. Rizzi, whether these plans seem to be sufficient for this purpose. If we're going to say we're going to minus a foot, or will it alter it too much and they have to submit new plans? So that's my thought. I would just jump on the actual 16.5 proposal.
There's a question for you, Mr. Rissy.
I think that they would need to revise the drawings when they submit for a building permit, but if you approve it at 16.5, we have the motion and you can modify. Yeah, I think the motion is in place that we wouldn't need to modify the drawings unless you need to see them again.
Well, I certainly don't think we need to see the drawings again showing 1 foot less. Mr. Tinter, do you have your hand up or is that just old news? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, that was, I just didn't put it down.
Thanks. So we have 2 alternatives. One is to approve it as advertised, and the second alternative is to or approve it as advertised. The second alternative is to approve it shaving off 1 foot as an alternative that I believe the applicant is agreeable to doing if necessary.
Madam Chair, I'm willing to make a motion for the 16.5 alternative.
Go ahead, Mr. Melnick.
Okay. All right. In case Z1160620 UP1, I would move that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution entitled Alternative Resolution Approval at 16.5 feet with the conditions as stated, including the 3-year time frame that we've discussed.
Is there a second? I will second. Any discussion?
Do we have absolute clarity about what design we're approving?
I'm looking at the condition right now in resolution number 2. It says that the applicant agrees that the structure shall be built in accordance with the footprint shown on the survey, the architectural drawings in the staff report, except as by modified by condition 1. Is that sufficiently clear?
I'm not the one who has to enforce.
Pardon?
I'm not the one who has to enforce it, so I'm interested in Mr. Rissy's.
You wrote
view.
this.
Yeah. Well, he wrote it before there was a supplemental packet, so I just want to make sure.
Okay. You have to figure out which set of drawings we're talking about, Mr. Rissy.
No, don't. We just aren't going to approve anything that's closer than 16.5 feet.
Well, there is a reference to drawings.
Yeah.
So we do have to honor that, right? So is that the drawings in the original packet?
Neither of the drawings show the structure at 16.5 feet, so they will have to submit new drawings.
To us?
No.
Oh.
For their building permit.
Okay. For the building permit.
But if the drawings vary as to dimensions other than the rear lot line, would you, I mean, we've learned our lesson on previous matters. Like if new drawings are, what's the latitude? We would not want this deck to become. We wouldn't want the width of the pergola, is part of the consideration here. So if the pergola winds extending across the whole deck, I think that would be a different case, and I wouldn't want to be putting latitude for that as an example. So I don't know if that's what this resolution does or not.
So is it clearly a reference to the architectural drawings in the original packet with respect to the, I see what Mr. Owen's concern is. I think we need to be clear if we're going to use the original packet, what is varying, right?
And we are okay with limitations placed on the width of the pergola as a condition added.
Right.
So,
What we're trying to figure out is if there is a drawing here that is sufficient to clearly identify what we are modifying.
Madam.
Yes, Mr. Melnick.
So I guess the applicant or their representative would need to say, you know, if we're going to have the 16.5 feet, would they choose their original plans or the ones with the pergola kind of reversed? You know, switch to the other side. Is that what you're inquiring about, Madam Chairman?
Well, we have to settle on a drawing.
Okay.
That we're going to follow.
At the 16.5 feet, it would be the new drawing scaled.
Okay. Maybe, Madam Chair?
Mr. Melnick.
So maybe in condition 2, we could just say the revised architectural drawings. You see?
Do they have a date?
Yes, December 14th.
September?
December 14th.
Oh, okay.
December 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do have a date.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we could say architectural drawings dated December 14th, 2020.
And I would suggest maybe the bold text should be adjusted to read, except that the rear yard setback will be modified by condition number 1.
Yeah.
Is that instead of except as modified?
Yeah.
Would be except that the, yeah, delete except
Rear
as.
setback will be modified.
That insert except that the rear yard setback will be modified by condition number 1.
Yeah.
Mr. Rissy, any problem with making the supplemental information part of the package?
No problem here.
Okay, this is a little more complicated.
I'm trying to go with the flow.
So I think
that's what we do.
So we have a motion on the table to approve the use permit, referring to the December 14, 2020 drawings with a modification that the deck nor the pergola will be closer than 16.5 feet from the rear property line as outlined in the conditions. Mr. Melnick, did you also include a condition about the expiration date? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Is that in there? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
And I'm fine for my motion with all these changes. I can adopt them in my motion, that's fine.
I ask unanimous consent that the motion be amended as we've discussed.
All right.
No objection. All right, we have a motion on the table. If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to adopt the use permit with conditions carries, and the use permit has been approved.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for working this through with us.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time.
Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item?
The next item is case number V-11607-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Elizabeth F. Hebel and Andrew D. Hebel, the owners, to permit a street setback of 16 feet to the wall of the rear addition, 15.5 feet to the eve, instead of 25 feet to the wall, 21 feet to the eve, as required from Brookside Drive. Regarding a new two-story rear addition to an existing one-family dwelling in the R5 zoning district on the premise known as 109 Brookside Drive. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Any questions of staff? All right. Is the applicant, Mr. Hebel and Ms. Hebel, here?
Yes, good evening. We are.
Good evening. Well, you're all smiley. Good.
Yeah, exactly. We're just waiting for our turn. We're ready.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application?
We just, first, like, thank you for your time tonight. And, I'd like to say that, we've been longtime Arlington residents here, over 10 years, fairly new in this location and the Lion Park house here. And yeah, we're hoping you approve our request to, build the addition on there. We're looking to start a family and trying to add a little bit more to the house to have some more space. And, I think that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rissy, we have any speakers on this? No, okay.
No one signed up, Madam.
All right, Mr. Owen?
Yes, I just had a question about the outreach to the your adjacent neighbors at the apartment at 67. Oh, I think I had it listed. I guess it's that maybe that's Bedford Street.
Correct.
But the neighbors that whose windows look out at your property in that apartment building, what kind of outreach you gave to those neighbors about this addition?
Mm-hmm. So we had done all the rest of the neighbors and actually weren't sure which people actually lived in those specific apartment buildings there, and just kind of with everything going on, we didn't feel comfortable going on and just knocking door to door trying to find that, because we had actually gone back out to get some of the other signatures that you had requested from across the street, and that building wasn't on there. So since it also wasn't on the side of the house that we are requesting the permit for, we did think we should chance trying to track them down.
Okay, Mr. Owen, anything further?
No, I have no further questions.
I have one question on the plat. There is an alley shown, and then there's a gravel driveway shown. Is that gravel driveway your property?
No, it is not.
And is it used by you?
We use it as driveway sometimes, yes.
All right, but it is not, we are not taking any action on this driveway in this application.
Correct.
Mr. Rizzi, do you agree with that? That this driveway that's called out here is not part of the application?
Yes, I agree. The driveway is not part of this application.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, the discussions with the board, Ms. Freshman.
Hearing none, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Go ahead, please.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving use permit V-11607-20-UP1 subject to conditions with the additional condition of 3-year time limit.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Mr. Melnick,
Aye.
Mrs. Clark.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to approve the use permit passes 5-0, granting the use permit with conditions. Still smiling.
Exactly. Thank you very
so
much.
All right, take care.
You too.
Bye.
We can call the next item, Mr. Rissy.
The next item is case number V-11608-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Ann and Francis Purcell. The owners submit a right side setback of 6.1 feet to the porch, 5.5 feet to the porch eave, and 7.5 feet to the wall, 7.3 feet to the eaves from the side property line instead of the 16 feet to the wall and porch 12 feet to the eaves as required. To the left side setback of 8.6 feet to the wall instead of 10 feet is required, and to print an aggregate side yard of 14.7 feet instead of 24 feet is required. Regarding a two-story addition to an existing one-family dwelling in the R10 zoning district on the premise known as 4507 38th Street North. Staff recommends the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. And I'd like you to please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was printed. And we also have some speakers who have signed up to speak on this matter.
All right. Any questions of staff? All right. Are the Purcells here? Yes, they are. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Hi, good evening.
Would you like to speak to your application?
Yes, we would. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time. So we moved into our house in 2004 as newlyweds. So we've been in the neighborhood for 16 years. We really love our little 1940 colonial that's actually close to its original size. Since moving in 2004, we now have 2 teenage daughters and really could use some more space. Our house has 1 bathroom upstairs that we all share. We have 1 full bathroom in the basement, but you can imagine what the space is like with all of us sharing. Again, we wanted to stay in the neighborhood as we really love it. So we have hired an architect, more architects to help us redesign the home for us to give us more living space. And it's really important. We really wanted to keep the integrity of the house, which is one of the reasons why we chose more architects, because they have done a lot of work to preserve some of the older Arlington homes. So as part of the design, we are going to add the things that we're required your approval on are to add a small mudroom to the left side of the house, an addition of a bay window to the right side of the house, as well as a screen porch in the patio area to the right side of the house. I should point out that our house is on a lot that is considered substandard. According to our architect, it's actually 7,100 square feet, when most of the neighborhood are 10,000 square feet. Our lot also has an extreme grade from front to back, in terms of the elevation from the street up to the back. We've discussed our plans with all of our immediate neighbors and received letters of support from 7 of them, including our neighbors on our immediate left and right, who are perhaps most impacted by the project. Our neighbor to the right is here tonight also to speak on our behalf. I'll turn it over to my husband, Chip.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think as the record reflects, there's been an objection that's been lodged by one of our neighbors. I'd like to briefly address that if I could. As background, it's the Abruzzes who were on Vernon Street, 3808 Vernon. As background, we reached out to all of our neighbors, surrounding neighbors, to tell them about what we were doing, to ask for their input, discuss the plans. The Abruzzes live in their home currently. They're renting it to another family. My wife sent the plans, pardon me, as well as what the relief that we're requesting from the BZA to Mrs. Abruzzi, to ask them to come to our house and we could walk the property and discuss it with them. They responded initially that they were concerned of the proximity of the screen porch to their property. We invited them to come over. We didn't hear back from them initially. Then after we followed up, said that they were not able to support our request. Mr. Abruzzi subsequently came over. He took some pictures. We did not hear back from them until we saw the objection that they filed with the board, where they said that they said having a large structure just 5.5 feet from the property line is a concern for them, and they were concerned about the structure obstructing views as well as reducing their property value. Just to quickly address those points, the 2-story addition, which we're doing in back of our house and would be visible from the Abruzzis, is not part of the use permit. That's something we can do by right. The Abruzzis would not be able to see the entire structure of the house, as the screen porch that we proposed is mostly hidden from their view. And the screen porch is not a large structure. The 2-story addition is the larger structure, and that's within the zoning code and not subject to the use application. And we wouldn't have designed a large structure that's within the yard setback, which is why we proposed the screen porch where we proposed it to be. With respect to the screen porch, which is would be located 5.5 feet from the property line. It's 1-story tall. It would be largely obstructed from view from the Abruzzi's yard by a retaining wall and fence that's on their property line, as well as trees on both properties. I refer you to the pictures of the staff report at pages 29 and 30. It would not be possible for them to see the interior porch from their yard. And also the height of the retaining wall, the fence on our property is 10 feet, which would be the same height from the grade to the porch eave. And the height to the height to the top of the screen porch roof, where it meets the side wall of the addition, would be 13 feet 2 inches. And as a result, the Abruzzis would not be able to see the majority of the screen porch, including its interior. As my wife mentioned, the property has an extreme rear grade slope, which would allow us to put the screen porch in the back. Also, again, the Abruzzis are not currently living in their home. We've reached out again to all of our neighbors who do live in their homes and gotten their support. And the last point I'd make is that in looking at the staff report on page 3, I would note that the property owned by the Abruzzis received a similar grant of approval from the BZA at some point to provide a reduced setback for their property. So just a point I'd make for the record. We appreciate the board's consideration. Our architects, Charlie Moore and Bill Bork, are here tonight to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Purcell. Any questions? Well, I guess we'll go to speakers next. We have speakers, Mr. Rizzi.
Yes, Madam Chair, we had 2 sign up. I guess that's Barbara Lucy.
Roche?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Barbara Blank, actually. Sorry, my husband is Jerome Roche, and I can speak for us both.
Okay.
So
you have video, or you just?
You know what? I for some reason my video is not popping up here. I apologize. I have it on, but it's telling me that my browser does not support video. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. We hear you.
So just very quickly, I don't want to take up too much time. Chip and Ann have been our neighbors for 13 years. Aside from the fact that they're incredible neighbors, which does not make a difference here tonight, they spoke with us about their project. We are very supportive of it. We have no issues at all. We did sign a letter in support, and I just wanted to be here to support their project. And that's it.
Thank you. And what was your last name? Sorry.
My last name is Blank, B-L-A-N-K.
And you live at?
4501. Oh, I should have said we are immediately to the right of 38th. So I live at 4501 38th. I saw my house on that lovely picture with the plat. I am immediately to the right of that house, of their house. That is my house.
4501, right?
Yep, that's us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other speakers here? Anybody else want to speak? All right. Any questions for the applicants or staff? Doesn't sound like any. All right. Discussions with the board.
Motion.
Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving use permit V-11608-20-UP1, subject to conditions listed and with the addition of the 3-year time limit.
I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Ms. Melnick, Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick. Any additional discussion?
I just want to say that the extensive photographic materials that were submitted with the record were very helpful. When we're talking about rear additions, sometimes we don't get a lot of, it's hard to see from the street, and so those photographs made a big difference to being able to move forward tonight. So thank you for making sure that those were included.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, and I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion passes 5-0, granting the use permit with conditions. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Purcell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy
holidays.
holidays to you all. Mr. Rissy, will you call the next item?
Next item is case number V-11609-20-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Laura and Daniel DeLuca, the owners, to permit a street setback of 13.6 feet to the porch, 13.4 feet to the porch eve instead of 21 feet to the porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eve as required from 17th Road North, regarding a new wraparound porch on a newly built one-family dwelling on a corner lot in the R6 zoning district, on the premise known as 1703 North Edison Street. Staff recommends the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. Any questions for staff? All right. Is Mr. and Mrs. DeLuca with us tonight?
Hi, good evening. Yes, we are. I'm sorry we're not able to get our video to work right now.
Okay, we hear you. Do you have anything
so we've been in.
add?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, hi. We've been Arlington residents for over 24 years, and we've lived at our current property since 2003. We tore down our 100-year-old home that really did not have good bones and was non-conforming. And we built a new home on the property to continue to raise our 2 boys. They're high school students. Although we have a fairly large corner lot, the setbacks being on the corner right behind Virginia Hospital Center make it a little tough to be able to build a porch for the entrance of our home and the side. So the design is in keeping with the traditional building materials in the home and consistent with the setbacks of the other homes in the neighborhood. It doesn't impact the sight line of either of the street. We have reached out to all of our neighbors and have submitted letters of support from most. Some, to be honest, one neighbor we weren't able to get in touch with when we knocked on her door. She just didn't come. But our property overlooks 17th Road North, which actually is like the back side of the houses, the high fenced backyards of the homes on 17th Road, or 17th Street. Yeah. And we have the support of our neighbors at the corner there at 5013 17th Street North, but the neighbors at 5009 were not available when we went by in the neighborhood support. But we have all the surrounding properties that would be near us. We have the neighborhood support. We're longtime residents of Arlington, and we appreciate your consideration of our request.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rissy, are there any speakers?
Signed up.
All right. All right, any questions for the applicant, Ms. Freshman?
Yes, when I was at the property, I noticed that if you're on 17th Road and looking at, yes, like from this view, it appears that there's a large parking pad and then nothing on the end of the property that goes to Edison. It struck me as a kind of an odd placement, and I didn't know if you could explain that and why, if you were building a new house from the get-go, it could not have included a porch so that you wouldn't need this exception.
Well, as we could say is, so the setback requirements are 25 feet from either road. Our lot is it's over 9,000 square foot, but it's narrow. And so in order to get the home at a size that fit our family, we weren't able to push any closer to Edison Street. We do plan to have landscaping and trees and having the Edison side be more beautiful than it currently is, because it's right now under construction still. But
yeah, our lot is a little bit odd shaped. It kind of a shape of a triangle. So the smallest part of the lot is what overlooks Edison Street, which was originally the old house. That house was completely, if not at least 75% non-conforming, about 10 feet from the road. So we had to move everything back, and that's where we are today.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Freshman?
Yes.
So just to reiterate, the porch was not part of the original application? I mean, your original plans?
For the original building permit, that's correct. We had requested our builder have it on there, but it wasn't. And I wish it worked. But the original building permit that we have is basically a by right build for our property, because the current house does not encroach on any of the setbacks. But the porch that we're asking for is why we're coming to the BZA to request approval of that.
Thank you, that's helpful. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, so the discussion is with the board.
Madam Chair, I had a question. I'm not sure who directed to. That's okay.
Okay, Mr. Owen.
So there's an alley indicated on the plat, and I'm wondering what's the ownership of the alley?
The alley's our ownership. It's part of our property line.
The others haven't. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. Please finish what you were saying.
No, I'm sorry. I said that behind at our property line goes back to the far side, past the alley, into just a little bit of the grass. We have letters of support from the owners of the properties behind us and that share the alley with us on that side, as well as several going down the alleyway as well.
So other neighbors have an easement over the alley, but it's your fee ownership. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Rusi, then my question for you is, the right side setbacks, or sorry, the rear setback is measured from the alley has an easement on it, doesn't matter. Is that right?
Sorry, could you repeat that question? I had a hard time hearing it.
So there's an alley on the rear of the lot, and is it true that the rear setbacks are measured from the back of the alley, since they own the alley, even though it has easements on it?
The rear setback is measured in this case from the property line, correct?
That was my only question. Thank you.
Madam Chair, was there support from the neighbor at 1707?
Is that question to me? This is again with the Luca. 1707 is our Nathan Martha Brzezinski. We have talked to her, and although she was not around when we were getting the neighborhood canvassing and the letters of support, she has not expressed any concerns regarding our BZA request and for the porch. The porch does not overlook her property. The front porch we're requesting the setbacks relief does not overlook her property at all. And actually, you know, we've moved a house that was pretty much right next to her back to the back of the property, so it's not imposing on her property or sightlines at all.
Ms. DeLuca, did you mention her name, your neighbor's name?
Martha Przensky.
Martha, thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right. Do we have a motion? So
I would, I'll try a motion. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving the use permit B11609-20 UP-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
I would request unanimous consent to add the 3-year expiration.
Okay.
No objection?
No.
Is there a second to the motion?
I
I'll
second.
second.
Mr. Melnick,
No, I was first.
Mr. Owen. It's a contest.
I'll defer to Mr. Owen.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Melnick.
Very, very gracious of you, Mr. Melnick. Any further discussion? We have a motion made by Ms. Clark, seconded by Mr. Owen to grant the use permit. I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to grant the use permit is approved on a vote of 5-0. All right, Mr. Rissy, thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. DeLuca. Ms. Rissy, will you call the next item?
Thank you.
Next item is case number V-11610-20-VA-2. It is a variance request by Arash Hosandaya and Leela Aspari, the owners, to permit a second-story addition within existing building footprint of a non-conforming building in the C2 zoning district regarding second story above existing walls on a corner lot in the C2 district on the premise known as 901 North Quincy Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed motion to withdraw the subject variance request per the written request of the applicant's agent.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the withdrawal.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Owen. I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to accept withdrawal of the variance request has been approved. Mr. Rissy? Next item, please.
If I may.
Who is speaking, please?
Hi, I'm so sorry. I'm not on the computer, so I can't ask to speak. I'm on the phone. My name is Diana Inez, A-N-E-Z. I'm the on-site manager for Ballston 880. This is the property located behind the proposed case that was just approved to be retracted, I guess.
Withdrawn?
Yes, withdrawn. I'm just wondering why the previous request was withdrawn.
The request was withdrawn because the applicant is seeking a way forward that is by right and doesn't need any exceptions from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And could you explain what that necessarily means by right? I'm just trying to get some clarification. I've received several questions from the residents. Currently, there is already a second floor level on that area. I'm just wondering if they are extending that second level or they're just rebuilding or making changes within that existing second level that they already have.
My understanding is that the second level will be extending over the portion that is currently only one level. But they're removing any of the openings on the rear of the, well, I guess it's technically the side of the building that is currently causing the building to be non-conforming.
Okay, and when you say by right that it doesn't need approval, why is that necessarily?
Mr. Ricci, I'm not sure what your interest is, but the applicant has withdrawn the variance request. So perhaps, Mr. Ricci, you and the speaker could take this offline.
Well, yeah, sure. If I could just make one last point, to the point where they're saying that they're going to extend, that's actually going to be blocking several residents' balconies. So I don't see of where the by right where it doesn't need approval comes into play. That was my only question.
Could you reach out to Mr. Ricci and take this offline, please?
Sure.
Because what we have before us is a request to withdraw the variance, and so the next steps we can't really speak to.
Right. I was just wondering why it was withdrawn and why it was accepted to be by right when I would believe that when it is going to be blocking several residents, more than 2 levels, that it would require some kind of approval or some kind of input from those that are going to be affected.
I appreciate your concern, but would you and Mr. Ricci discuss this? Mr. Owen?
Yes, I just note that it's 10:02 p.m. and I think we had a notion that we were going to do a procedural check-in around now. So maybe before we call the next item, I don't know if you had intended to have a discussion with the BZA about how we want to proceed with the rest of the cases.
So, Mr. Owen, we had agreed that we would not hear any new cases after 10 p.m. and I think we made that deadline. So I think our agreement is that we would proceed with the next case. Is that everybody's understanding?
I'm happy to proceed with it, but if we are, then I have a question about the case after this one.
Okay. The other one that's been that we're deferring.
So if we have a consensus that we're hearing the Upton Street case, and a consensus that we are not hearing the 4th Street case, do I correctly understand the consensus?
Well, colleagues, is that correct? We do have a request for deferral on 4th Street.
So Ms. Freshman had, I think, asked earlier if we could go ahead and move the 4th Street deferral once we were certain it was going to be deferred, instead of making anyone who's here for 4th Street wait, to be called afterwards.
Okay.
So, and there were some questions I wanted to put on the record for the case, and so I just wonder, for the sake of efficiency, in case someone is monitoring solely for 4th Street, to not make them monitor for however 90 minutes or whatever it would take to the next case, that maybe we could bump 4th Street ahead for the purpose of deferring it, putting questions on the record, and then move back to the other appeal. That would be my suggestion.
I have no objections to that, but I noticed that Ms. Freshman's no longer with us.
I'm here. I'm just not visible.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So are we in agreement that we would proceed with the Upton case and also move the 4th Street case up to do the deferral?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any objections. All right. Yes.
So what would the options be? Like, if we were, like in reference to the Upton case, like if we weren't to hear it tonight, what would the options be? That is, I'm interested in hearing that.
So if we do not hear the Upton Street issue tonight, we would defer it to the next meeting or whatever the group decides. I would suggest that if we have any questions of fact or anything else we would like to know about this case, that we would actually put those into the record now, so that both the applicant and staff know what to prepare for when this would come back.
So, okay. Thank you.
So is that a concern about proceeding with that case tonight?
Yeah, I think, it'd be my view, I don't know how long it would be estimated to take or whether there could even be an estimate. So, but I know we've talked about not wanting to go all that late because then it becomes not productive.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if there's been any talk about how long this is liable to take. So that's my concern. Is we need to be productive. Just not manipulate.
So appeals, there's no way to know. There's no way to estimate, but we could, we know that for appeals, speakers have much more time, both the appellant and staff, to make their case. And if there's speakers, that gets added to it. So we're probably looking at least an hour. Ms. Freshman, do you want to comment?
Well, those 4 of us were on this case originally, and there were multiple hearings, and it was a long drawn out affair. And I feel that it would probably, my guess is that there would be a lot of discussion. And I know that there are several issues that are going to come up that are going to be raised by BZA members as well. And so I feel that even though it's maybe frustrating for the participants who have waited all this time, I think it's very hard for us to have a lengthy, productive discussion when we're starting after 10 o'clock at night.
I am open to a motion to defer if that is the request.
I would just throw out one other option, which is that since everyone is here, that maybe we could conduct some part of the discussion, get things rolling tonight for maybe for an hour or so. Let the parties make their arguments, ask questions that we might not be able to get answers to right away, but go ahead and have some discussion with an expectation that we would then carry over whatever remaining discussion needs to occur at the next meeting.
Mr. Rissy?
Madam Chair, I believe that there's been a question posed in the chat.
Well, they're not supposed to do that, didn't they? Listen.
I agree, but it sounds like you're getting questions, so you may want to hear from people.
Well,
Mr. Rissy, can you please read into the record what the questions are? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I wonder
please.
if you would approve.
Vice Chair
Mr.
Owen,
Rissy.
that is fine. Yes, if you could read the questions in, that way we would know what we're facing.
All right, I currently have 3 questions in the chat. The first is from Leslie F. Rupert. The question is, and would the builders of Upton Street have to halt building until the January meeting? That's question 1. The second question is from Saeed. It just says, Mr. Rissi, I also have questions for the Ballston withdrawal. Can you please advise how to get in touch with you? There's a third question, again from Leslie F. Rupert. Would the Upton Street have the ability to halt the building until January? Those are all the questions I see in the chat at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rissi, is building progressing on this project?
My understanding is building is progressing on this site.
We're getting more chat. I can see that.
I would like to please remind everyone that the chat is not for asking questions. Questions do have to be posed verbally for the record because the chat is not captured in the record of the meeting.
All right, Mr. Rissi, board members, can we call the item to actually get some guidance on where we're, let's see, can we call the item to ask, well, can we call the item to give people answers to these questions? Because we're really talking in the air right now.
So, Madam Chair, I would say maybe the cleanest way to proceed would be to call the item here under regular order from all the speakers. Try not to have any discussion or back and forth. Respond to all the speakers, and then we can decide after all the speakers have spoken where some may say we should or shouldn't defer, and then take a check-in after that about how we want to proceed.
All right. Colleagues, I know you're concerned about the lateness of the hour. Would you accept that proposal?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Melnick.
I'm all for expediency. However, sometimes if you split up a hearing, then, the problem would be, memories fading about presentations, things brought up. That's the only danger about like splitting it, like taking, evidence, if you will, hearing from speakers and getting facts, and then breaking it up if we had to do that. Because, then we're just, I guess we'd have the transcript, but, it's just, it wouldn't have the flow, I think, that would be beneficial. Like if then we're going to decide to like halt the meeting. That'd be my concern.
Thank you, Mr. Melnick. Ms. Freshman?
Yeah, once again, I feel as if that we have to call the item in order even to defer it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can certainly call the item and based on our reading of what has been submitted, we can put in the record questions that we feel should be addressed. But I think, just eating 15 minutes just to decide what to do is
Mm-hmm.
proof positive that it's not a good idea to proceed. And if we're gonna defer it after calling the item into January, and if we want to agree that it can go first, even though we know that that will wreak havoc with the rest of the agenda, as it usually does, so be it.
Thank you, Ms. Freshman. Anyone else want to weigh in? We will have to call the item to defer it. I guess board members can ask questions of staff regarding the deferral. because I'm concerned about the question that's been raised about halting the building, and I would like to talk to staff about that to understand what's in play. So I guess, as usual, we would call the item. Normally, we'd hear from everybody first, but if we're going to defer it, we would not.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering if Ms. Clark has any views on this so we can figure out where the majority lies.
I think I'm in agreement that it's a new issue for me because I'm the one person who has not been involved, but I'm okay with if we defer it until January, and even putting it first is okay with me.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm happy to go with the consensus here that we call the item. BZA members ask questions, but we don't receive testimony, and then we defer it to January.
All right, Mr. Risky. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there, Mr. Owen.
I'm prepared, supportive of my colleague's consensus.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and call the item, ask questions, and defer.
Mr. Rissi, will you call the item, please?
The next item is case number V-11600-20-APP-1. It is an appeal by Stephanie and Bears Uz, the adjacent property owners, of the issuance of a zoning determination addressing issues related to variance V-11093-15-VA-2 and building permits for the construction of a new single-family dwelling in the R8 zoning district on the premise known as 2260 and 2264 North Upton Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed resolution affirming the zoning administrator decision. Please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed. And please note that we have additional speakers who have signed up to speak for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rissi. All right. I think because of the lateness of the hour, and we had indicated that taking up a big item like this late in the evening would not be productive, we believe that we should defer this item until our January hearing. But in the meantime, if there are questions that we would like to ask of staff or of the applicant to have answered at our January hearing, this would be the time to put those into the record.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Owen?
I have a number of questions that I was intending to ask, some of which will be better answered, I think, with some intervening time. And I can also provide them in writing in addition, because they're somewhat lengthy. So I think I might ask the zoning administrator and the appellant if they are willing to cooperate to avoid ex parte problems with also transmitting them in writing. But to summarize briefly, my questions include, we didn't have a financial disclosure form for the applicants in this case, and I'm not sure if we need one in order to do our evaluation of conflict of interest. So hopefully someone can advise us about that or submit a financial disclosure statement. There was some lack of clarity in my mind as to whether or not we had exactly two matters to decide. One, whether the variance has expired, and two, whether the variance incorporates the architectural plat dated April 11th, 2016. Questions that we're being specifically asked to decide. A big question is, are there facts in dispute, or are the questions before the BZA and the matters of the parties pure questions of law? Do either party, the zoning administrator or the appellant, wish the Board of Zoning Appeals to make any findings of fact? If so, can they submit those findings of fact in writing so that we can include them in any resolution? For example, would anyone like the BZA to determine whether the BZA does or does not require architectural drawings to be submitted for variance applications? Or, as another example, do the appellants wish the BZA to find that their property would suffer harm if the project were built as currently intended. Additional questions, would the appellants be satisfied with the proposed resolution the staff report is proposing, or would the appellant like to propose its own resolution? With regard to the involvement of American Signature properties, when and how did they come into possession of the property? Did they have actual knowledge of the 2016 dealings with the neighbors and the BZA? How are they in privity with the prior owners? The parties think that it's relevant whether or not American Signature Properties did or did not have actual knowledge. Does the zoning administrator believe that any records of the BZA other than the minutes were considered or ought to be considered in determining the meaning or the content of the variance, such as the audio recordings, the staff reports, or records of the previous BZA actions on these same parcels, and other questions along those lines. Does it matter do the parties think that it matters whether or not the lack of standard conditions in the BZA resolution was intentional or if it was a clerical error? If the omission of the standard conditions was a clerical error, what is the appropriate application, if any, that the appellants have, as the appellants have cited to Virginia Code 15.2 2311C? If the fact finder in this appeal concludes that the BZA intended to include the standard conditions in the resolution, does that mean that they are in fact incorporated into the variance, or is intent not enough? Does either party agree that the following are relevant in assessing the BZA's intent to pass the resolution? The hearing report, the staff report, previous variance hearings, and common or routine practices of the BZA variances around the time of May 2016. The appellants appear to be arguing that even assuming that the standard conditions were intentionally omitted, that the architect plat dated April 11th is still necessarily a description of the variance approval, because otherwise the location of the approved subdivision would not be knowable. To the appellants, is this a correct statement of your position? To the zoning administrator, does the zoning administrator have any response to this argument? Most of the way through, if the variance has expired, either because the standard BZA condition requiring a building permit within 1 year was not met, or because the requirements of 15.6.5 were not met, what is the current disposition of the property? And I think this goes to some of the questions that people were alluding to earlier. In particular, what is the status of the January 6th, 2017 plat approval? If the variance has expired, do the lots revert to their previous boundaries? Do the parties agree that the parcels have been effectively re-subdivided and only disagree as to whether a variance remains in force to allow construction on the non-conforming lots? Why was the reapproval of the subdivision obtained on July 15, 2019? For the appellants, the zoning administrator determined that the submission of a preliminary plat of a subdivision and the approval of a subdivision plat on January 17th constitute an affirmative action to satisfy the requirements of 15.6.5. If this is insufficient to finalize the variance, what do appellants think would have been sufficient? Attorneys for American Signature Properties assert that they took additional actions in 2019 and 2020 that vest them with rights to pursue the variance as they understand it. Do you disagree with the vesting argument, or are you merely asserting that these actions fail to satisfy 15.6.5 because they occurred more than 1 year after the variance was approved? There's a citation to Brown v. Fairfax County Board of Appeals. That's a Lexis citation, and none of us have access to Lexis, so maybe someone can provide us with the text. I have some other questions about a related case, Board of Zoning Appeals versus Vastland Systems, that was cited in the American Signature Properties. And then the final one, which is kind of a biggie, so I'll pause here to emphasize it. In the event that the BZA's decision is appealed to the circuit court, the circuit court will reconsider all matters of law de novo. Therefore, while the BZA should endeavor to be correct on the law, it would not necessarily be efficient, in my opinion, for the parties to present their legal arguments exhaustively at this stage in the proceeding, despite the foregoing questions. However, maybe the parties would be penalized in future proceedings for not preserving issues at this stage. Therefore, I would just ask the appellants and the zoning administrator if they wish to identify and preserve any additional issues of law on the record, perhaps without going into excessive detail on it. And does the zoning administrator wish to identify and preserve any additional issues of law on the record? So I think those are my questions, many of which would benefit from some time for the parties to deliberate on. And then my final question is, it appears that there's the property, the developer, American Signature Properties, it's not clear to me what their role would be when we hear this in January. Would they just be limited to 2 minutes like any normal speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Any other questions that we want to put into the record to possibly get information about before our next hearing? Mr. Rissy, are you raising your hand? Go ahead. Mr. Rissy.
Mute. You're muted.
Mr. Rissy. Still can't hear you. Still muted.
Right. Okay. It's been pointed out to me that Virginia State Code 15-2312 requires the Board of Zoning Appeals to make a decision within 90 days of the filing of the application of an appeal. So that may raise some difficulty with the idea of deferring it beyond this evening.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Owen.
The Virginia courts have held that that provision of law is directory and not mandatory, and has upheld the BZA action that took over 350 days to decide. Our goal is to decide this as soon as we practically can, and I think that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Rissy. I have two more questions that I would like to ask. I'm not sure they were entirely covered in Mr. Owen's question. One would be, if indeed the BZA had discovered that it made an error in not noting that the standard conditions were omitted, what remedies would have been available to us prior to now to make a correction? And the other question has to do with standing. Is the fact that staff is bringing this case forward indicative of their belief that the applicant has standing to present this case? And third, in one of the pleadings, it indicated that the BZA has the power to dismiss. So the options are not approve or disapprove, but also dismiss. And I'd like clarification on that from staff. Any other questions?
I would just ask if either the zoning administrator or the appellants would object to me sending these questions in writing to Mr. Rissy to distribute to them, notwithstanding what would otherwise be an ex parte problem.
I don't know if you're going to get affirmative action.
Or let me ask, if it's okay, Madam Chair, to ask if the appellants have any, would state if they have concerns or not about that.
Zach Williams for the appellants, no concerns on our end.
Okay, and presumably since Mr. Rissy works for the zoning administrator, he wouldn't mind either.
All right. The question, any other questions we want to put into the record? All right. Is there?
Sure, Mr. Melnick might be trying to speak, but he's muted.
No, I'm not trying to speak. Thanks for inquiring that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Owen. Any further questions? Are we ready for a motion? Yes. Are we agreement that we're headed towards a deferral? Then we'll need a motion.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, so I move that case Z116020 APP1 be deferred to the January Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Second.
Motion to defer made by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Is there any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to defer to January carries. So we will hopefully have some of the answers to the questions, and we can be very efficient in January and get through this as quick as possible. So we have another item that we need to address. And Mr. Rissy, can you call that one, the 4th Street?
Case number V-11601-20-APP-1 is an appeal by Rebecca Hunter, the property owner, of a zoning determination addressing zoning relief needed for a proposed re-subdivision of the property at 3413 4th Street South, located in the R6 zoning district. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution affirming the zoning administrator decision. Please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed.
And is this the one that the applicant wishes us to defer?
Yes.
The applicant's agent submitted an email this afternoon requesting deferral, correct?
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a slightly shorter list of questions.
Okay.
I have the same questions as the previous one about the financial disclosure form, whether there's exactly 2 questions to decide, namely whether a variance is required to re-subdivide the property because the remaining parcel would be less than 60 feet wide, and whether a use permit is required to re-subdivide the property and retain the existing house in its current location. And do the parties think that the answers to those questions have to be the same as each other? I'm especially interested to know if either party wants us to make any findings of fact, or is this a pure question of law? And if there's any facts in dispute, would the appellant be satisfied with the proposed resolution in the staff report, or do they want to propose their own resolution? For the appellant, I'd like them to respond to the zoning administrator's argument that 3.2.3 requires a variance and use permit to reduce the lot area of any non-conforming parcel. No lot shall be reduced in area except in conformity with all area and building location, bulk, and placement coverage regulations. Are you arguing that this particular reduction is in conformity with all regulations, even though the resulting lot is not in conformity with such regulations? In addition, I would ask about Arlington County Zoning Ordinance 16.5, which the zoning administrator provided to us, that has language of construction that contrasts with 3.2.3. It describes non-conforming conditions that are, quote, created or furthered by the acquisition of land by the government. Should the BZA draw inferences from the fact that the county board used the or furthered language in 16.5, but did not use similar language in 3.2.3? Does that mean that the county board wanted to require variance under use permit even if a particular reduction in land area did not further the narrowness of the lot or proximity of the side setback? Does the applicant concede? Next question, does the applicant concede that a subdivision of this parcel that reduced the lot width or decreased setbacks would require variance or use permit? If so, does that mean the zoning administrator or the Department of Environmental Services would be required to ascertain whether a nonconformity was or was not furthered when determining whether to allow a re-subdivision? I have some elaboration on that question. For the appellant, They provided the BZA with a copy of Circuit Court decision Horner v. Board of Zoning Appeals, but it would be helpful to know if the ordinance language in Fairfax County when Horner was decided in Fairfax was the same or different than 3.2.3, and if not, what the differences are. Horner includes a discussion of Masterson. How should the BZA apply Masterson in this case? For the zoning administrator, can you please respond to the assertion of the appellant that 3.2.3 has been inconsistently applied? Is there a meaningful distinction between a request to re-subdivide a lot in a direction perpendicular to the side yard setback nonconformity and a request that the applicant cited to add to the rear of a house with a side yard setback nonconformity? Does the determination by the zoning administrator in this matter mean that going forward, all nonconforming properties will need variances or use permits for any modifications? Or will some modifications continue to be allowed administratively as they have been in the past? Or the zoning administrator have the applicants provide the BZA with a copy of the Circuit Court decision in Horner v. Board of Zoning Appeals? Do you believe that Horner should be considered by the BZA as relevant and persuasive of relevant law? If not, how is Horner distinguishable? And similar questions for Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Any other questions?
I would just say, I would ask my colleagues, again, given the unusual circumstances of the applicants, I don't know if any agent of the applicant is present, but the applicant's attorney said he was out sick and was not intending to be present. And so I don't have anyone to ask permission for the ex parte distribution of the written questions. And I'm wondering if my colleagues would object to me sending these questions in writing simultaneously to Mr. Riss.
I think
I wouldn't want to do that without your consent.
I don't think there's any objection, and if to that, I wanted to add a couple more before we conclude, but I think that would be fine since Mr. Rissy is one of the parties, and he knows all about it already. There are a couple things I wanted to ask. There was a suggestion that BZA prior actions set precedent for zoning staff and how they interpret regulation. And I wanted to understand what the opinions were on that. And there was also a specific case cited, the Lipari case. And I'd like to know if it was correct that this case did not need a use permit for the non-conforming aspect of this property that existed at the time of the application. That's my questions. So again, we would defer. I think it is our intention to defer this to January, to put both of these cases at the top of our agenda, and hopefully be able to be as efficient as possible with getting some of these questions answered.
Preferably in writing.
Preferably that would, and before the hearing if possible, that would be even more helpful. All right, is there a motion to defer this case?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Owen?
I move that we defer this matter to the January 2021 BZA hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Freshman. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to defer to the January BZA hearing passes 5-0. All right. That concludes our cases. We have some other business. What's your pleasure? Do we want to do the minutes or the financial disclosure statement first? Yes, the financial disclosure was on our, we'll do that one first since it was on our agenda.
Madam Chair, I note that our secretary has his hand up.
Mr. Rissy.
Yes, I had a question about the agenda for January. I'm just looking for some clarification here, as this is the 5th and 6th item that have now been deferred to the January meeting. Our typical procedure is to put the items on the agenda in the order in which they were deferred, so this would be cases 5 and 6, rather than at the top of the hearing. Is it my understanding that you would like to amend the order of the hearing so that these cases are heard first?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yes, I did not necessarily mean that they go over the other carryovers. Well, we can put them in their place.
How many new cases are there?
I don't know offhand. It's somewhere between 4 and 6.
So we're going to have a 10 p.m. issue again.
Likely.
So one of the I don't know if we want to cover that tonight, but one of the topics was was our schedule for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And as Mr. Rizzi informed us that we could be back to meeting in actual buildings at some point, but it still seems that in January to March, we're going to be virtual for sure. And is it, and he had suggested the notion of carryover meetings in the schedule that he prepared. And I wondered, Mr. Rissy, would you entertain a carryover meeting in January to help smooth out this agenda?
Madam Chair, I'm actually going to defer that question to the zoning administrator, who is actually with us this evening, because it comes to matters of staffing that I can't answer.
Okay. Is Ms. Vaughn still here? I don't see her, Mr. Rissy. Are you reaching out to her?
Looks like she is not.
Okay.
I'll reach out.
I think, speaking for myself, I think we would do a far better job on these appeals if they were on their own night. I think everyone would be better off if we have those resources available to us.
My other question is, would this be a third meeting? Are we still planning a work session as well?
We'd have to sort that out, Mr. Rissy. So, we would take what we can get.
Madam Chair, so I would not be in favor of 3 meetings in a month, though.
Okay.
I just think that's too much.
So if Ms. Vaughn does not return, I guess we'll have to take that offline. Oh, she's returned.
Welcome back, Ms. Vaughn.
So nice to see you. The question is whether in Mr. Rissy's preparation of the schedule for next year, he had introduced the notion of having carryover sessions for each of our hearings, and talked about the logistical difficulties if those hearings were in brick and mortar building in the boardroom, and how we would have to work around Planning Commission and the county board hearing dates. But January through March, I assume are going to still be virtual. And we were circling back to you to see if we could entertain the notion of a carryover meeting in January to help smooth out the agenda because Mr. Rissy is pointing out that we already have a number of items being carried over and also a number of new items to hear. So he deferred to you in terms of staff resource allocation and what might be done with that in that regard.
We're not going to have any additional staff resources in January or February or likely March. So we cannot commit to having more than one meeting a month. We don't have the resources.
So I think what we were concerned about is that given what we're facing in January, we'll probably be deferring January items into February and just keep pushing that hill along. Because if we have a number of carryover meetings, 2 appeals, and then new meetings, we probably won't be able to complete that agenda in one night either. So you've given us your answer. So that's why we were calling you back, because Mr. Rissy wanted to us to consult with you. So I think we understand our situation, and
yeah, it's not great for us either.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry to bring you back.
No problem.
Ms. Freshman.
Can we have a meeting, a workshop, a separate workshop that doesn't involve, that allows us to discuss issues, whether it's scheduling or whatever else we want to do? I mean, is that, I don't know how much of beyond Stephen we need for that, but it becomes an unmanageable situation if we can't have more than one meeting, and I assume that would be equally true if we're meeting in person. So I'm not sure that the virtual part, that may make it easier rather than more difficult. But it seems to me that if we have things we need to discuss, like tonight, we could talk, we're now, close to 11 o'clock and we're still talking about, we still have minutes and we still have to discuss the schedule and whether or not we're going to have a workshop and on and on and on. We already know January is going to be a mess. If we can't have a carryover meeting, we at least might be able to have a workshop if it can be done more or less like we're doing now, where we just get together at a given time and with an agenda and say, we can't talk for more than 2 hours because nobody wants to do that, and just let it go at that. And with the recognition that for the foreseeable future, regardless of where the meetings are, there's a better than even chance that every single meeting we're gonna have carryovers. Because unless the number of applications falls off, that would be particularly true in January because we have 2 appeals, which is just a nightmare scenario. Then, okay, so we may not finish January. That'll carry over to February. There'll be new cases in February, and some of those will end up in March. And we know from past experience that under ordinary circumstances, cases come up that have to be deferred for a month or 2 for any number of issues that have nothing to do with the time of night or anything else. Just, you got to reach out to your neighbors, or you got to do X, Y, Z, or you got to get an arborist to come and look at your tree. And so I think if we can only have one meeting and we want to try to be productive enough not to go all night, and 4 of us have to spend all day tomorrow doing this stuff too, then I think that's just the reality. The reality is we're going to be under pressure for the foreseeable future, unless and until there is a way to have carryover meetings. And I don't think we need to agonize about it.
Okay. Well, that,
I don't see another option.
I don't see another option right now either. So I think, you know, we're just going to have to do our best to move things along.
Okay.
So, Mr. Rissy, on the question of a work session, would that be staff prohibitive?
For questions of staff, I'm going to defer questions of staffing to Arlova.
Do you have Ms. Vaughn?
I raised my hand. I was trying to wait to be recognized.
Go ahead.
I have come to expect a work session in January. So that I assumed was going to happen just because this is kind of our regular pattern.
Okay.
And that is certainly doable. There's a very different level of prep and effort that goes into a conversation of more, you know, it's advertised, but it is really a work session. So that we would have no problem with.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. So we just have to come up with a mutually agreeable date. And I think
agenda.
And an agenda. And I think we should do that offline by email, so as not to take up any more time tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
So should we assume for planning purposes, personal planning purposes, that the list that Stephen's provided us should be on our calendars and with locations to be determined? And with my caveat that I would just as soon never go back to the courthouse building for reasons of my own survival. So when it comes to making rules about those things, I think at least somebody should be allowed to be virtual. In order to have a quorum, new definition of a quorum or something.
Yeah, I have reached out to our representatives on that question as to whether the General Assembly will provide relief to make remote meetings permanent option.
Or some, you know, only 3 people have to be in person or something like that. But I mean, I don't care how they do it. I'm just telling you that, you know, this is how you're going to see me.
Lovely.
Probably not with a Christmas tree all the time, but.
You know, seasonal decorations, Judy.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. Well, you had a cat. I don't have any pets, so.
I think maybe it would be helpful to have the rest of our schedule on the work session agenda, because I think in September we still have some discussion that might be beneficial.
Okay.
So we are committed to January and February, possibly March dates. I think we'll need to be. Has everybody looked at those dates? And again, we'll do this offline, but at least get the first 3 of the next year so Mr. Rizzi knows what to tell applicants.
I move that the BZA approve the January, February, and March date.
Second.
All in favor, call the roll. Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So we have an adopted schedule for January through March, and we can take up the rest of the year at the work session.
Which would be toward the end of January, most likely? Or whenever there's not as much pressure on Stephen as usual, unless it's always the same.
Stephen, would you be willing to put out
some dates?
Some dates that you and Arlova would be available, and then we'll try to see if we can accommodate those.
Yes, we'll get you some proposed dates.
Okay, that's terrific.
Great.
All right, let's go back to the agenda. We have a property financial interest disclosure statement for the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals. Do we have any comments, questions? changes that we want to make to what we have drafted, what Mr. Owen and Mr. Rissy have worked on?
It's a great effort and improvement.
Thank you.
And much more user-friendly. Definitely.
So I would just point out that there's an expectation that it will be that the content will be the same and the general basic format will be the same, but the font and the shape of the boxes and the colors and the arrangement of things might be slightly different because Mr. Rissy and his colleagues have access to better document layout software than I do.
Sure, and there's probably some county standards that will apply as well. So,
but hopefully it'll be we'll have fewer errors and omissions because it'll be clearer.
That's the goal.
Not too much legalese and nonsense.
Mm.
I mean, don't take offense.
No, that's what I was trying. That's what I was going for specifically. No, this is a document the previous document. It was designed for lawyers to fill out, and we need a document that's designed for unrepresented parties.
People, real people.
For real people, yes.
We call you unrepresented parties, or if we're feeling uncharitable, we call you pro se.
Whatever.
We're an unrepresented party. Wow, I like that.
Can I move approval of the November minutes?
Oh, wait a minute. We're gonna approve this first.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Sorry. Revised.
We're going to make a motion to adopt this.
I move that we adopt the revised financial disclosure form.
I'll second.
I will call the roll. All in favor, Mr. Owen?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The proposed new
Yay, thank you.
has been adopted with
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Madam Chair. I have a clarification there.
With the understanding that there may be editorial, let's see, not editorial, but formatting changes.
And also the understanding that this will be rolled out whenever it's convenient for staff to update their requirements. So it's not necessarily effective tomorrow. It'll be effective whenever Stephen feels he's ready to roll it out.
Great.
All right, and now to the minutes.
Now, I'll move approval of the November 18, 2020 BZA minutes.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Owen. I will call.
Okay.
Sorry?
No worries.
What?
Ms. Freshman.
Did I say Mr. Freshman?
It's okay.
Yeah. I think it should be
Got
just
rid of
M.
him a long time ago.
M.
He's long gone.
From now on, you're just M. Freshman, M. Melnick, M. Clark. Okay, and that way.
Okay.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Owen.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Mr. Melnick.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved 5-0.
Yay.
Any other business before us? Our agenda having been concluded, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.